What's going on, everybody? It's your boy PTK Blam back in the building with another episode of the Shop Podcast. How have you got beautiful people doing this weekend, man? It is another beautiful Saturday. We appreciate everybody in chat. Once again, retweet that link, share it out, let everybody know the Shop Podcast is live. We have another first time amazing guest this week. So run that link out, let everybody know we're live here. Shout out to everybody in chat. We got Shonsu, Luis. I've seen a bunch of other people. You guys are freaking amazing, man. The show is growing every single week. We had a record last week. Hopefully we can keep breaking records every single week, man. Looks like you guys are just really supporting the channel and enjoying the content. So we're going to do our best to keep that going every single week. And I got the best partners in the business, as well as some of the best guests here that we try and bring the best show possible to you guys every single week. But enough talking about that, man. We got a lot to talk about today. We got a lot of stuff to get into, man. Gaming has been on fire, literally, man. Just news everywhere. Obviously, with the ABK stuff looming, there's still so much information coming out. It's hard to keep track. But let's go ahead and get into our guests here. I want to jump into that first, man. Give them their proper due. And shout out to you, Captain Logan, man. Captain Logan, if you don't know, the biggest Sea of Thieves fan I know personally. So, and I think I can put a stamp on that. So anybody want to challenge me, good luck with that. I mean, you can probably go check his profile. What them hours look like on Sea of Thieves at this point, Logan?
It's thousands, but I'm small and compared to like some of my friends out there, like
I
some
bet
of the streamers and stuff. It's insane. They've got, in the neighborhood of 2, maybe 3,000 easy.
Jesus Christ. So shout out to you, man, for coming and hanging out with us. But let everybody know where they can find you, man. That's not it. You got a lot of other things going on, man. XCP, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so over at XEP, so if you like Xbox news, Xbox expansion passes, where I hang out with Luke and we talk about gaming in general. There's also the Keelhauled podcast. So if you guys like Sea of Thieves or you're interested in Sea of Thieves, I've been doing a podcast for Sea of Thieves for 5 years now, over 5 years now. And just every week it's just another conversation to have about pirating. Other than that, I'm just over on Twitter at CAPT_LOGUN, just kind of doing the normal thing until Elon decides that he doesn't want to have Twitter anymore and we have to figure out what Threads is. So
shout out to you, man. Shout out to Captain Logan and all of that information he just brought up. You can also find that in the description below, man. I appreciate you coming on. Shout out to Luke, man, the other half of XCP, man. That's my guy, man. I'm sure he'll drop in chat here. Hopefully we see him today. But appreciate you. And still, what are you talking about? What is this nonsense, Paul? What is still on today, man?
What is it? What is he saying now? I'm not even looking. I was tweeting this out, but what's going on? Why is Steel coming in here?
Let's get naked.
Oh God! Oh, Steel, it's not past midnight yet, brother. Come on, man. Goodness. That's after hours Steel Rain right there early. So I don't know what's going on, but he did go to dinner for a pre-birthday party for himself, Lord. Right?
Yeah,
so
mimosas,
maybe that's it. Goodness. He's feeling pretty good right now.
Steel's coming in fresh here. Well, shout out to Steel, man. The other half of Living Split Screen, and I appreciate you guys, man. Awesome show as well. Awesome show. I just want to say, put it out there. Did you guys hit the goal yet?
Did we hit the goal? No, we did not quite hit the goal, but we did get into YouTube partnership, right? Because they reduced, but we're at 960, so we're 40 away from the organic 1K. So we are still on that mission. Obviously, we had almost a 5-hour show this morning to top it off this week. So yeah, we are getting closer and closer for sure. So 100%. You want me to get in my intro here?
Go ahead,
okay.
Brother, go ahead. Cool.
Mm-hmm. No, been a great week. First of all, shout out to Captain Logan for joining us. Pleasure to meet you, sir. Anybody who hangs out with Luke Lore has got to be pretty damn cool. So thank you for giving us your time this evening. Love Luke. I had the chance to podcast with him a few times, and he's just an amazing dude. But great to have you here. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. I know you're a big Xbox guy. You play everything, but obviously Sea of Thieves guy, plus a lot of stuff. I was looking over your feed and stuff. So I can't wait to hear your takes on the topics tonight. And of course, brothers, PTK and Fuzzy, great to see you guys. Been one heck of a week here. Not a whole lot of gaming. I was really, really busy. Did get in some more XO Primal, nice. which is still just a fun game. Again, there's just games
way better than I expected. I couldn't even thought that, like they did such a good job, and this is such a left field for me at least. I didn't play the beta. I know a lot of people did, so I didn't see this coming. But it's my daughter has that game is taking her life over, bro. She's already like max ranked everything in that game. It's ridiculous.
Nice. I love to hear it. This is, again, I'll say it again. This reminds me, Capcom is back to peak Capcom again, because this is the stuff we saw during the 360 era where they would try new games and try different things. That's how we got, games like Lost Planet, right? Came out of nowhere, left field back in the day. This is what I love. And, again, there are games, it's not going to be for everybody. Obviously, the reviews aren't the greatest, but it's just pure fun. You jump in there with a good crew of friends, up to 5 people in a group, which is awesome, and just killing dinosaurs. Like, that's all it is. But there is a deeper game within that game as well. You just have to play it to start opening up some of the other different modes that they do have within that game. And then it just grows on me more and more every time I play it. I really do enjoy Exoprimal. I don't know if it's going to have legs. It's going to be up to the devs, whether or not they supply it, whether they give it enough content down the road to keep it going. But again, there's no egregious microtransactions. Almost all of the stuff, there's a couple costumes and stuff, locked behind a paywall. But most of the stuff you can actually buy, even if you don't get the premium pass. You earn a lot of coins. You go up levels fast. It's just a fun game to jump into. So Exoprimal, obviously jumped into Diablo Season 1. I went Necro this time. I was thinking about sticking with Rogue because of how much I loved Rogue. I stopped up at 82, I think, level 82.
Same.
Yeah, somewhere right around there. Took a week and a half off, 2 weeks off before the season, and kind of played some other stuff. Came back, started Necro, and my God, am I loving Necro. Necro is so dang cool.
You guys are making me jealous. Who else went Necro? Didn't somebody else go Necro too?
I don't know who else went Necro. No,
I can't remember.
I can't think of anybody else who went Necro, but I just... You know what? Necro was always I'm either Sork or I'm Necro. That's what my Diablo mains have always been. That's why Rogue was so different for me, and it caught me off guard how much I loved it. But being back at Necro and the way they've got it set up now, really loving it. Malignant Hearts are definitely changing the game. They are game changers. They're already looking super powerful. Some of the stuff I've already seen. I know there's a lot of discourse around Diablo. Steele and I had about an hour-long chat this morning about the fireside chat, how they're handling it. There's a lot of discourse. It doesn't change the fact that the game, to me, is still good. There's things to criticize right now. There's a lot to put on the devs right now, but this game is still great. It's still my game of the year. So far this year. It's probably going to change with Starfield hits. You guys know that. Baldur's Gate 3 might even sneak in there as well. But for right now, I'm having a great time. It feels fresh. It feels fun all over again. And so we're having a great time there. But then, as I was talking to you guys behind the scenes, Remnant 2 dropped this week for early access if you bought the Ultimate Edition. And if you guys have been listening to me, I had zero plans to buy any more games. Again, Baldur's Gate 3 was already something outside of my purview. I was not planning on doing it, but I did it because I could not help myself because it looks so fantastic. And now that I have a PC, I was like, screw it. I'm jumping into Baldur's Gate 3. Remnant 2 came along and I started watching all the videos on the classes, and it just was like, no, I really want to play this game. I don't need to play it, but I really want to play this game. So I picked up the Ultimate Edition, have played mostly co-op. You gotta do like a 20, 30 minute tutorial where you're kind of single player. I have played mostly co-op with Jasper and Steele. This game is fantastic. Played a little more single player today. Don't be scared away if you hear a lot of people saying it's Souls-like. There are some qualities that are like Souls games, but it's more forgiving by a long shot than Souls games are. And there's a lot more to this. There's Outriders. There's some, Borderlands to it. There's a little bit of everything, but my God, the developers took that next step, as we always like to see when they come out with a sequel. Everything that they learned from the first game, they said, let's do this and more. Let's fix some of the criticisms from the first game. Great. And that's exactly what this did. This game is unique. This game has procedurally generated levels. You can start in completely different spots from another person. So if you're playing with a friend, they might have done the beginning opening levels and started at a completely different area. You're going to run into magic doors that you have no idea. They don't handhold anything. So you come up upon a magic door and you got to decide whether or not you want to enter it, and you don't know where you're going to wind up. You walk into a room, you don't know if all of a sudden you're going to have a boss fight. Jasper and I were down in the sewers, right? Like in the first 15 minutes of our co-op level, we wound up and down in the sewers. The next thing we knew, we had some kind of giant were-rat monkey thing with lightning aspects to it, where it was calling down lightning, attacking us, and we got rolled.
That's descriptive as hell, by the way.
Yeah. We got rolled like right away. We got back to the checkpoint, because you go back to the checkpoint, which is like Souls. We came back. We almost got rolled again, but we wound up beating it. This game is a lot of trial and error, kind of figuring out patterns and that kind of stuff, but it's got loot to it. It's got crafting to it. Characters are unique. You've got all these different classes. Now we found out that there's hidden classes that you can open up. A lot to be desired here. So if you're thinking about jumping in, not a full price game if you want to wait till the actual release next week, $50 gets you in. Ultimate Edition gets you in early, which started yesterday. Plus you get 3 DLC packs that are coming. Listen, if you're looking for another game, I know there's a lot out there right now. Remnant 2, go grab it, try it out. Hundreds of hours of gameplay here. I've rambled enough. You know me, my intros. I always got to talk about the games I'm playing.
It's all good, man.
Just
We
having a
love
great time. You guys, thanks for listening.
No, it's all good.
TTK, let's get down to business,
No,
brother. We got some
selling
topics
games over here, baby. You know how I go. I go. Appreciate you though, Pong. Once again, you got the easiest way to follow Pong. All of the information down in the description below. We appreciate you every single week, man. Shout out to General Spartan, Talos Casino. What's up, baby? How you doing, Six Slayer? What's up, Spider-Man 356? Shout out to everybody hanging out with us in chat, man. But Pong, we appreciate that, bro. You done already sold me pregame.
Yeah,
I told you every
I
week
know,
this happens, whether it's Game Pass or whether it's actually.
You were already there. I just
was
pushed
close,
you over the
man.
edge.
You
I just
kinda
pushed you over the edge. That's all.
Just a
You gave me
nudge.
a Spartan kick over the edge. What you talking about, nudge? And he sold the hell out of that. No, for sure. But appreciate you, man. But last but not least, Mr. Fuzzy Bell over there. How has your week been, bro? What you been up to? What you been playing?
Oh, it's been pretty light for the most part as far as gaming news and stuff, but been playing a lot of Diablo. I know there's some, like Pong said, there's some discourse with it. I I don't even want to talk about the sorcerer aspect, because I went for the fun aspect instead of going by the numbers with the fire sword. But yeah, it's still in a bad spot. But going barbarian this time around, a lot more fun. Feels a lot more durable, let's just say, without having to spec everything into like armor and shields and whatnot and fortified and stuff.
I still got to find a balance. I'm having a tough time, but I did rogue first, so this is how it felt for the first 20-30 levels for rogue. I respect maybe 2-3 times before I felt like I had something, because I don't right now. Even the build I got right now with my barbarian still feels a little like a glass cannon almost.
Yeah, but it's still fun. Hopefully they take this last criticism as far as their fireside chat to heart and get some things worked out. I know they're working on something before the next fireside chat, but this would be a perfect time for them to bring like a PTS server kind of thing. So test some things out and get feedback that way. But other than that, playing a little bit of Undisputed, still playing GT7, I guess you could say just waiting until October 10th for Forza Motorsport and stuff like that. Hoping that they keep some of the tracks that I love that are on the, basically IMSA schedule and things like that. Hopefully they keep Daytona and Watkins Glen, and they got to have the Nürburgring in there as well. But there's only like 12 announced tracks, and there's like 8 spots left. And their previous games had like 26 tracks. So they're definitely cutting down on some of the fantasy tracks and then putting in some new tracks and stuff like that. So it's kind of like that launch window and launch lineup is going to be a little lighter than expected, possibly as far as some of the favorite tracks, but can't wait until October. But other than that, just looking at everybody going back to Call of Duty, man, it never really expected it to be this big until it hit Game Pass kind of thing. But hey, more power to those that are, going to GameStop or just going back into their library and popping the disc in or just yeah, for those that even picked up a Series X to do this now, it's kind of cool. But other than that, we got some interesting topics. Got awesome guests on here tonight. I can't wait to get into these topics. So let's do this.
Let's get into it, man. Shout out to everybody in chat. Once again, I appreciate you guys, man. Seeing you beautiful people every single week hanging out with us, man. It melts my heart, man. This is why we do this here at the Shop Podcast. So we hope you guys leave with something here from the Shop Podcast. But let's get into it, man. Let's get started. We got a whole lot to talk about, but we're going to do this poll. I think I've skipped the poll like 2 weeks in a row. So I don't want to neglect the poll. You guys are so awesome. You guys vote every single week. And if you want to be a part of that, my Twitter is all the information is down below. Go follow me there. I put it up every single Monday. So shout out to the over 1,000 people who partake in the poll this week. You guys are awesome. It was a pretty good poll. So shout out to everybody who voted. But we're gonna go ahead and go over that right now, and we're gonna get into some of these other topics. So the poll of the week was: once the ABK deal is officially done, what would be your first move as CEO, Captain Logan here? So we playing a little bit of fantasy football. I had a few different options. I don't know if you saw or actually voted on the poll, but I had WoW on consoles as an option, revive old IPs. I have give COD a break or reassign dev teams, and it was an overwhelming majority. 47% voted revive old IPs. So if you guys had the keys to the, car, essentially, that's the first thing you guys would do. So where you at on this? We start with our guest here, with you, Logan. Where you at on this? Did you, kind of follow suit here, or did you have another option?
No, I voted for reassigned dev teams. Matt Booty has been a little under fire lately for what games are coming out and stuff like that. But if it's the proof is in the pudding. If you look at Hi-Fi Rush, when Tango Gameworks gets to do what they want to do, they can make some really amazing stuff. And I know a few of the devs over at Blizzard. There's a couple at Raven that are really good people. There's some really talented folks that have come from other studios from Microsoft that are now kind of getting worked back into the fold. And I gotta say, man, if it were up to me, I'd ask Matt to go to each of the different studios and say, all right, you guys have been doing this for a long time. You're either going to plan to stick with that because that's what you're comfortable with. But if there's anyone that wants to go off and make the next Hi-Fi Rush, the next Grounded, we are going to give you that opportunity to kind of start filling in some of the holes in Game Pass. And I'd start reassigning some of the dev teams, let them start playing around with different projects. If it was just the same old, if they just go back and revive old IPs, then we wouldn't really get a whole lot of innovation, which is where indies really thrive. And if you start taking really talented devs and you give them the opportunity to play around in an indie mindset, that's when you can start having some fun. And that's why I would say, like, reassign the dev teams, let them play with whatever they want, and see if we can get like the next World of Warcraft out of them, or the next type of Souls game, like whatever that genre is. Like, Blizzard is fantastic at refining genres. Let them take the opportunity to go and refine that. We already know that they're doing like a survival game that's going to be high fantasy and stuff like that. We already know that they've got their Clash of Clans coming in the form of Arclight Rumble. There's plenty of other studios that, like Toys for Bob and stuff, that are support studios now. I would like them to be able to work on stuff that they think would be fun, because if Blizzard is an example, Blizzard used to play D&D back in the day. They then came up with Warcraft, and then they did 3 iterations of Warcraft and built out 2 additional IPs during that time before they got into EverQuest. And then EverQuest catapulted them into World of Warcraft. And where would a lot of PC gamers be if it wasn't for World of Warcraft? So I think that when you start letting devs make games off of the passion that they have for games that they're playing, that's when you start to get to see some real fun stuff come out of the woodwork. Look at the latest Zelda. Tears of the Kingdom has major influences from Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. Nobody played Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, which is probably why we don't have another Banjo game right now. But when you look and see what they've done with Tears of the Kingdom, it's when they got to do what they wanted to do. And I think just reviving old IPs is only going to serve that nostalgia for a good, like, maybe 15, 20 minutes, a couple hours. People will buy it and then they'll play for a little bit and it'll be cool. But we're already doing that. We're already remastering stuff. We're already remaking stuff. And Yeah, it'd be good to bring those old games forward so that you can play them again as well too. There's a whole discussion about games preservation around that, but I would like to see some fresh blood take their chance, take their shot, see what they can come up with.
Yeah. No, that's a great take. Great take, Logan, because I feel like there's a healthy balance, right? Especially if you look at the case with Activision Blizzard, they've been bottled up so long, right? And I guess that's the example we're probably all going to use in this particular instance. They've been bottled up so long, so much talent that we've seen do other things. You don't want to just stick them on old IPs and say, hey, remake those over again. But what I will say is that I would like to see some of the older IPs in new iterations of those older IPs. I didn't specifically mean like remasters. When I say revive old IPs, I'd like new versions of those classic games, maybe a completely brand new game. So maybe that's a fine line too, right? Yeah, I mean, you can make that case as well too. That may be towing the line a little bit, but I think there's room for both. I mean, we got if we just use Activision as an example, there's so many studios that can be doing so much else. You can leave 3 or 4 on Call of Duty if they want to do that primarily. And I assume that's what's going to happen after this deal. You're not going to pull everybody off Call of Duty. It's too big to do that, right? Like, it makes too much money. It doesn't make sense to do that. You need the help sometimes, but you don't need as much, as many. You don't need the entire freaking building working on one IP, right? So that's the hope when this deal closes that happens. So I think we're kind of all going that direction too. A healthy balance of both for me would be perfect, but ultimately we'll see how this all falls out. We still got to figure out, you got to think about licensing. And if you try to revive old IPs, that's another thing people aren't talking about, Logan, is it might be hard to get some of these things back, right? Like some of these old games, we don't know what the deal was. Some of these studios are closed. They no longer exist. So it's like, where are we going to do it at that point? But let's throw this over to you, Pong, just with the poll of the week. I don't know which one you voted for, but where you at?
Yeah, this is kind of a chicken or egg poll right here, right? Because a lot of these things all kind of are dependent upon each other happening, true. Right? True. So I went with give Call of Duty a break. And I don't mean put the entire franchise on pause, obviously. That's never going to happen. But I do think that what I would do instantaneously would be to say, okay, Modern Warfare 3 is going to be the final back-to-back game that we do for Call of Duty. And I think we're going to a 2 to 3 year cycle, because once you make that decision, and ultimately, like I've talked about, I would probably make Call of Duty a games as a service, even though it already technically is. I would just make a platform out of Call of Duty and then add expansions, every year, every 2 years, whatever the case may be, drop map packs, etc., and just let it continue on and not come out with full releases anymore. Once you make the decision to do that with Call of Duty, then you can start talking about reassigning teams, right? Restructuring teams, right? Who's going to stay on as a support studio? Who's going to work the main stuff, right? Obviously, most of us would vote that Infinity Ward and Treyarch are the 2 teams that alternate between the Call of Duties. All right, well, you still need support studios. Raven is, the Warzone main support studio. They have done a fantastic job in a lot of areas with Warzone. So you really can't take Raven completely off of Warzone, but how can you restructure that team and maybe break off a portion of Raven to go do work on some of the older IP, bring back some old IP, like Captain Logan said, come up with fresh new IP. Again, that's something that we've talked about so much. The track record with Xbox buying studios, acquiring studios, is already speaking for itself. We've already seen games like Grounded come out of Obsidian, which never would have happened had they been on their own. That was a passion project, right? Started by whatever it was, 14 people, whatever the case may be. Exactly. We've already seen that kind of stuff happen.
Was it 25 million people now or something?
Correct. The crazy, right? So that track record's there. So when Phil talked about that, I believe him, right? I do, because they've already proven they're going to do that with other studios. But you got to find a path forward, because Activision has now all these studios so wrapped up into Call of Duty, almost or all, you can say, of their studios wrapped into Call of Duty, including a studio like Toys for Bob's, which make no sense whatsoever. So I think that pausing Call of Duty, That's why I voted for it first, would be like, hey, let's take a step back. First, let's make the decision that we're going to go every 2 to 3 years with new Call of Duty. Then you can work your way out and start, doing, like I said, what I just talked about, and kind of looking at the other direction for the other studios, considering old IP, all that kind of stuff. So that's why I went with that one.
Okay. All right, so where you at on pausing COD, Logan, just to throw it over to you before we get into fuzz, because that's an interesting idea too, but he is right. This kind of when I looked at the poll, and this always freaking happens, I do the poll, like a day later, I look at it like, man, it's kind of a domino effect. Some of these kind of rely on each other, and I didn't realize that as I was making the poll, so kind of interesting to see that is kind of true, right? So where you at on just kind of maybe putting a hold on, because remember, people might forget. I know a lot of people in the chat, you guys are, a little bit more hardcore than a lot of other people, so maybe you guys don't. But that was the original plan. We weren't supposed to get another Call of Duty this year, right? That was supposed to be on hold, and they decided
it's supposed to be DLC.
Yeah, it's supposed to be DLC.
From,
so that was it. There was no brand new large single, standalone COD coming this year. And for whatever reason they changed. I don't know if that had anything to do with the deal, but where are you at on that, Logan? How do you think that affect? You think they'll get back to that once this deal is over?
I think that COD has to stay like pushing. Like I think I would love for COD to take a break, but if we're being 100% honest, COD is one of the main drivers for that publisher. So having that slow down is going to be really tough. I don't think there's a world where you couldn't take a few of the devs from the studios that are working on it and give them an opportunity to make a Gaiden version of COD that is kind of like its own little baby, and see how that plays out, especially given what Ubisoft is doing with their shooters, and what we could be seeing from Sony in the future with their own studios that they're just spinning up. But I don't think you can slow down COD. I honestly am kind of surprised that we haven't heard anything from the Call of Duty franchise so far this year. I'm wondering
or anything.
Yeah, and usually I'm expecting Gamescom to be kind of the announcement if they do have something, or they'll probably do their own show in
Does
September.
this deal change that though, depending on when we get the official Welcome to announcement, right? No, they already got it set in stone. Yeah,
this is a bullet train going. It's got years of development already locked in and loaded. They know what they're going to be working on. There's no way you can slow this thing down, but that's gonna be bleeding money at that point, because COD is just look at what we got announced recently. We got the Black Noir Homelander and blanking on her name, Star something. I can't think of her name from Bad Boys, or no, what is it? Is it Bad
Boys? From The Boys.
The Boys.
I was thinking of the Bad Boys, but yeah, we just got the skins for them coming in there. There's gonna be more after that. I would love for them to take a year off of COD, but it's like Pokemon, man. You can't just stop that machine.
Man, that's the best and worst thing though. I know, Pong, you're gonna jump in here, but it's just yeah. I feel like, so in theory, it absolutely needs a break though, right? So I get everything you're saying, Logan. I absolutely understand the machine, right? Is what you're talking about. The machine, you got to keep the wheels greased, but in in theory, everybody knows it needs a break. So how do you that's the balance, right, Pong? How do you fight that and still keep the machine fed, right?
Yeah, and Activision realized this. We Bobby came out, everybody's favorite, Bobby Kotick, but he came out and said it was unsustainable. Right, it was unsustainable the way it was. That's why the plan was just to do DLC for Modern Warfare 2. The only reason why I think they changed it was to complete that contract with Sony. And I really do believe that. I believe that their plan was, without this acquisition and without obviously Sony pulling the nonsense that they pulled, and now we do know that Jim asked to get out of the marketing deal because he doesn't want Sony marketing and an Xbox first-party title. And if all that's true, and we got to believe it is because it's in court documents and everything else now, then that was the legit reason why they switched this over to a full release, was to complete that contract ahead of time so they could be done with that deal. So once this acquisition goes through, that franchise is free and clear. And I think that that's the only reason why we haven't heard more about it, is because of the marketing stuff behind the scenes. Yes, they're still going to make an announcement themselves. Activision is still going to push forward with Modern Warfare 3. The one thing we won't know is a marketing deal, because I think that's kind of on hold right now. Maybe they just hold Sony to the contract and say, hey, but if I'm Xbox, right? If I'm Phil and Satya, I'm telling Bobby, hey, don't go forward with the marketing deal. Let's try to get this deal closed. Once we close the deal, I'm making the first phone call I'm making is to Jim and saying, hey, Jim, you still want out of that marketing contract? Great. We'll give you your funds back. That's not a problem. We'll refund you. You're out of the marketing deal. We're putting Modern Warfare 3 right into Game Pass day one, right? Because the marketing deal is over with. Period, point blank. That's it makes sense from both sides. Again, Sony does not want to market this game, which is going to have Xbox all over it, Microsoft all over it. They don't want that. So I think that is a big deal. But I do believe, just getting back to the original point, I do believe that it is unsustainable what they've been doing with Call of Duty, even though we can look at the money, the numbers, the amount of resources, the amount of time and effort put into this. It is kind of an unsustainable beast at this point. And the fact that you have Warzone taking off so much, the fact that you have Call of Duty Mobile now growing exponentially, as we just saw the numbers, and the fact that you're now going to be underneath the Microsoft umbrella, I think there is a world where we can actually see that happen. Financially, of course, is it going to affect the bottom line? Yes, but Call of Duty was never the main reason for this acquisition from the beginning. Microsoft and Xbox can make that decision, right? To say, you know what, we're going to get more return on investment for the future if we make this decision now. We'll take initial hits up front to kind of pause Call of Duty or to put it on a 2 to 3 year cycle. But at the end of the day, that freeing up teams, that giving us more flexibility elsewhere will actually be a bigger investment down the road.
That's what I was going to say.
So that's my thinking on it. Again, nobody's going to know. We're going to find out, but nobody's going to know. But that's just my thinking where I was coming from on that.
No, that makes I mean, like, I don't know. Like, it's tough to say because it's so tough to project out. But, you got games like, I mean, if other areas, we got a game like Diablo, which wasn't in the best place before Diablo 4, although, ironically, we're talking about that and there's so much, going on with the community right now. But still, you can't deny what Diablo's doing. So maybe that time taken to free up other teams, maybe that balances out in the future. And like you said, we can't really know, Pong, right? We're playing fantasy football here. It's hard to say. Like, maybe these other studios, other games that they make aren't hits. Maybe they aren't great games.
Yeah, correct.
They don't sell a ton. That can actually happen, right? So we're not.
And Xbox could look at it too, PTK, real quick, and just say, hey, we're going to grow the teams out. Right. Which they've done with all their other acquisitions. So we're going to acquire ABK. Call of Duty continues as is, but we're going to grow these teams even more, even though we're taking on somewhere between 12 and 17,000 employees. We're going to grow these teams more and then branch those teams off into second teams that work on other things. That's certainly a possibility too. And Captain Logan could be completely right that they just continue rolling with Call of Duty as is. It is certainly a possibility.
Yeah, that's absolutely 100% true. 100% true. Let's throw this over to you, Fuzz, because I'm dying to get your opinion on this, bro. I don't know what you voted as far as the poll. And shout out, like I said, that over 1,000 people who voted on the poll. You guys are rock stars. But where are you at on this? Because we talked about this a little bit, Fuzz, here and there. But obviously, with the stuff going on now, obviously that's changed things a bit. But where are you at on the poll, and which one did you vote for?
Well, I voted for the revive old IPs and stuff, but I say all of the above pretty much works, but there's one step that I do before any of them. And I jokingly put it in there as like all of the above, but would be part of the plan. But the first thing that I do as a CEO is send Bobby Kotick off into the sunset with his golden parachute. That's first. Day one. And I know he's going to have to help and assist with the whole transition and stuff like that. The minute that's done, here's your check, Bobby. Thank you for your service. Bye. That has to happen sooner rather than later. One, for morale. Two, since we don't have to worry about their old board since they've been bought out. It's not like they're loyal to him for him making them money. And it's not like the people that are under him that weren't the problem or the ones that, weren't or had their hands tied as far as the decision from an HR standpoint, which HR typically is to protect the company, obviously, but they've had that HR nightmare for some time, and it's time to focus on getting a lot of these devs that you'd want to keep on hand, at least the ones that don't have complaints against them and stuff, on board and move some of the old guard out, starting with Bobby. But that's first step. But I think the big thing when it comes to Call of Duty, you kind of need to pause it or do it on a rotation where I'm thinking there's 3 studios that are broken into, one being just Warzone. All you do is Warzone, seasons, updates, stuff that is going to be in a Call of Duty that winds up making it into Warzone. They team up with one of the other 2 teams, and the other 2 teams alternate every 2 years or so as far as which one is going to be the primary. You're going to continue to do Black Ops. You're going to continue to do, I would say, Modern Warfare, and that's kind of where things are. And how far Modern Warfare goes, I don't know if you want to go full on space. Maybe that's a special event thing or once in a blue moon type of deal. But I think we need more games that are from, let's say, 55 and up, or 1955 to 2005-ish range. And then something that's going to be, kind of like what Battlefield 2042 did, where it's what we know they have now or what we think they may have now as far as tech, up to what would be probably the next 20 years type of thing, and just constantly do a rotation. I don't want to see World War II anything for at least 5 or 6 years. You may have that as Warzone modes or things in Warzone, but I don't want to see a Call of Duty World War II for at least 6 years. Like, that better not happen. Like,
I actually don't even mind not seeing one at all, to be honest.
Yeah. And Modern Warfare being as popular as it is now, that I would say be the main focus. But like Pong said, grow those teams that are going to be focused on it. I don't know if it's Treyarch and Infinity Ward that stay on Call of Duty and they alternate or whatever the case may be. But you're going to have to pick 3 teams, like a Warzone team, a 2005 or 1955 to 2005 range, and then on occasion have that team maybe dip back to World War II after, like I said, after 6 years or more. And then the team that's doing like 2006 and newer, that focuses on stuff you see in the news, stuff that we speculate that the military has, or stuff that we know that they have but is not public knowledge type of stuff. And that's the play. But you can, I think you can get away with the alternating, at least having like an off year every other year type of deal, if you put more focus or emphasis on those off years on Warzone. That would be I think the way to go. And maybe maybe that's where you do like the space one as like that off year one, or the World War II as the off year one in Warzone or something along those lines. But I think at least from a morale standpoint, and more than likely to not burn out those devs that are on those teams, that I think kind of needs to happen to some extent, so they don't constantly have, you're drawing resources from all these other teams that could be better put to use for other gaps in your lineup. Like Toys for Bob, the only time I want to see them doing a Call of Duty type of thing is maybe if it's a Lego Call of Duty or a crossover like that type of thing. But outside of that, have them focus on platformers or family-friendly games, things along those lines. Like, have them be like the alternating, family-friendly game team next to what do you call it? The ones that do Psychonauts. I keep forgetting their names.
Double Fine.
Double Fine.
Yeah. So have something along those lines where you can do the alternate. So they, family-friendly games. Double Fine is the one that's more mature themes, and then Toys for Bob can be between more mature themes down to like E for everyone kind of stuff. But start looking at your old IPs, and to go to what Captain Logan was saying. When you look at those IPs, have it where it's almost like it's in. If you have an idea of a game that you want to make, great. If you don't, or you're kind of wondering, like, because I would have to believe some of them might even look back at their own previous IPs that they've had, have it where it's on the bulletin board, and if a team wants to pick it up, great. But I would say they definitely at least some of the or most of that talent needs to kind of move into other things that can, fill gaps in the lineup, help with different content for Game Pass. I mean, the shooter aspect or shooter space for Xbox right now is pretty stacked. So I think that's one of those things where it may take 3 years before you can get into this type of rotation, but I think Call of Duty needs that break. I'm going to say probably by 2025, and just make sure Warzone is stacked with content to kind of fill that gap, or Warzone is the go-to on those off years or something. But that's just my 2 cents on it. I would like to see, like kind of like what Cat was saying, reassign the dev teams. Like we know Raven Studio has done, some licensed stuff in the past, or even things like Prototype and things along those lines, or what was it, Singularity? So just some of that stuff needs to be revived or reimagined in current times with, the current technology that we have as far as game engines and such. So that's it.
All right. Well, let me
the real first thing I'm doing here, PTK, is I'm
What's
walking into Infinity Ward and find out for sure if that rumor's true that they are working on an open world sci-fi first-person shooter with ex-BioWare devs. I'm giving them whatever they freaking need. I'm like, what do you guys need?
I haven't
don't
heard
care.
that. What the hell?
Yes, yeah, that's been a rumor. We talked about this over a year ago.
Oh, okay.
It was a rumor from an insider that nobody caught really on Twitter, and he's deleted the original tweet. But we just got word that during this whole process, this court case and stuff, that this is it brought up again that Infinity Ward is working on a secondary project, and it is a first-person open world sci-fi RPG. And if that's real, again, the original rumor was with some of the BioWare devs who worked on the peak Mass Effects and Dragon Ages. If that's true, they get whatever they want. I'm like, you need a new studio to work on this thing? Go for it. That is going to be one hell of a game at the end of the day, I think. It's got a lot of potential. Let's go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You got to be real careful about that, though, because Microsoft owning Activision Blizzard, if they got a project like that coming in, I guarantee you Matt Booty's like, all right, here's what all the other studios are working on. Let me see something that is not something they're already making.
That's true. Yeah. But I don't think
Overlap.
Booty's going to have much to say if they're going to keep it completely separate, right? It'll be direct to Phil. So maybe Booty's not in it.
I would be very impressed if Booty doesn't have his hands deep into the Activision publishing stuff when that all goes. I mean, Phil's going to be head of Xbox. He's going to be in charge of everything. But I mean, Booty's the guy that is going from studio to studio, checking on each team and seeing what those projects are looking like.
Yeah.
Except for, is he checking for what do you call it, Bethesda, or no?
He wasn't as much, but I guarantee you he is now.
Yeah, with the whole Redfall thing, I mean that might have been a situation where, yeah, right. I mean,
but all hands on deck for Starfield. So
yeah, right. It's a great damn excuse, though. I love it. But let me get to these 2 super chats because got to make sure we show the people some love. But we got 2 super chats. Awesome. But the first super chat, $10 super chat from Rob the Don. He said, I personally would triple up Trey, Infinity Ward, Sledge, and make where there's 9 teams and it skips 1 year. So then each gets 5 years to make their own game and another 5 on their own COD, if that made sense. So he'd break it up that way. So once again, we don't know how this is going to play out with Call of Duty. And that's a great segue into the next topic. But let me get this last super chat and then we'll slide into that. And shout out to Chris Jones for the $10 super chat. He said, as a union rep myself, it will be interesting to see the type of union contract that is put in place with Raven that could affect certain aspects of restructuring, among other things. That is a big thing. We forget about the human part of this because we're just gamers, right? Like all we give a shit about is the video games ultimately. But in reality, there's real humans. Like, this is why this is happening. They weren't even going to be purchased if the whole human side of it wasn't going on, right? That's the biggest problem, the whole HR nightmare that's been over there at Activision. So that is true. We can't lose we can't lose an idea of that aspect as well too, because it's very important. But a great segue into the first actual big topic of the show. I want to talk about this COD resurgence on Xbox and kind of what this means, Logan. I mean, I know you've seen it, right? You know, we've kind of hinted at it with the first topic. And once again, shout out to everybody who voted on the poll of the week. We'll do it again next week, so shout out to you guys. But man, this COD stuff has been crazy. We got into this chat pregame a little bit. So it's obviously been now it's publicly known that Microsoft was responsible for going and fixing the servers. Now, when I say fix, I mean fix with bunny ears, because they fixed the ability to play Call of Duty. You get in a game and get out of game. They didn't fix the hackers and all of the BS that goes on. You can't really take that stuff out at this point. It's like part of the game now. So I don't want to mislead you and say, oh, well, you're going to jump in and every lobby's going to be perfect and you're not going to see guys flying around with rocket launchers everywhere. No, that's probably gonna happen. But if you're, if you can avoid it, you're still gonna have a really, really good experience, way better than you did a year or two ago. These games are basically unplayable online. So we got that. We obviously got that out. Now that there's been people coming back in droves, it's pushing console sales. It's come out that it's like 80 for 80. The Series X and S is like 84% up on Amazon. They're selling out everywhere. They're hard to find. This is factual, by the way, people. The articles are out there. You can go find that information. But I want to start with you, Logan. Right? The ink isn't even dry on this deal, and we're already seeing the effects of the direction that the deal is going. Right? People are excited. We're already seeing that excitement generate in like real time. So where are you at on just the resurgence of Call of Duty? What it's going to mean for Xbox? How are they going to benefit directly from this once that deal is done?
Man, this is wild. Okay, so hear me out. We had a marketing deal in place a while back that was set up to have Activision Blizzard game like Call of Duty games on sale, right? That was like something that was planned well in the past. Whether it was like before the deal like kicked off or after the deal kicked off, we will never know. I think they planned on having this deal closed up and they were going to have a summer of Call of Duty. They were planning on like getting this sale out there. They were going to fix the server so people could jump back into it. And this was all just kind of like a lead up into what was going to be life with Xbox having Call of Duty as like a first party IP. The fact that folks are going out and getting copies, the fact that folks are jumping into, I've been seeing videos of people like taking their discs out and slipping it into the 360 and then grabbing their controller and jumping into a lobby and immediately getting killed. It's been fantastic to see like folks having this resurgence, this love in just showing like this is what people really enjoy. They really love going back to some of the stuff that they've had, which totally supports the idea for the poll that was put out about reigniting, revitalizing some of those old IPs that other people just don't have access to like they do right now with Call of Duty. But seeing these servers come back up, it's a little sus as to why. It's cool that they're doing it. But I'm very, very curious, like if this is like something that was planned a long time ago, anticipating that the deal would have been done in
already.
June.
It feels like it. It definitely feels like either that or it's a hell of an olive branch, right? It's a hell of a like put a ring on it. Like this is not the actual wedding ring. This is the engagement. You know what I mean? Like
it's so cool, man. It's so great to see, and it's one of those things where I would love to see them do with other games, but this was something I talked about with Luke on the Xbox expansion pass earlier today. What is this costing? Like, who's paying for these servers? Is this Microsoft? How long are we planning on keeping these servers going? Who's taking care of that traffic? Like, who's keeping? Because there's a liability somewhere. Like somewhere, someone has to take the ownership of whether or not someone like gets their system hacked or something like this is still on Xbox consoles, so there's still some sort of like liability or customer service that has to be tied to this, I would imagine. So I want to know who's footing the bill for this. Is it all Xbox or is it Activision and Xbox? Like where's the money coming from with this? Because that'll be really telling onto who's doing the sweetheart deal with these Activision games.
Okay, all right, go ahead. Anybody want to jump in on that, Fuzz, Paul?
Yeah, like I think the big thing is this is going to, I guess, like you guys said, it is kind of suspicious how the timing would have been right around that July 18th, deal is closed type of timing. But I think the big thing now is like now Call of Duty is going to have its own version of like Master Chief Collection kind of when this is all said and done. More than likely, I can totally see that being the next step because this kind of buzz or draw. We saw initially when they made the announcement that they were going to acquire them, there was a few stores or maybe a few rogue employees over at like Walmart or something like that putting up signs like, be careful what system you buy because Call of Duty is being bought by Xbox. And, people are like, oh, wait, the deal was just announced. How are people like, telling people not to buy a PlayStation because of it or something? But yeah, it's strange and nice all at the same time. I know a lot of people, still give Jim Ryan a lot of slack as far as like when he made that comment, like who plays old games? Well, now we see a lot of people play old games, and it looks like one system has it where if you're into that, as far as especially when it comes to Call of Duty, it's an easy choice at that point. But I hope this leads to like another series of the updates. Like, remember how we had the frame boost and the HDR updates and things like that? I'm hoping these games get that. So if they don't already have, if they're not already running a stable 60, I think most of the Call of Duties at this point were running a stable 60, but give it the HDR love and, the high, the higher resolution love and stuff like that. And, or possibly, maybe on those off years, this is where a remaster or an update like that could come into play. But yeah, it's cool to see. I'm hoping they continue to do things like this with some of the older IPs. As far as I know, Blur they closed down a long time ago, but yeah, it's great to see them bring back some of these old IPs. Call of Duty still has a loyal fan base for some of the older ones. A lot of people prefer some of the older ones to the new ones. So yeah, this is a win-win all around. Just hopefully this deal gets its announcement, I would say hopefully by Gamescom, and hopefully we can move forward from there.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, the timing is crazy. And I know you brought that up, Logan. That was like your first point, right? Like the obvious timing, right, of all of this happening and the news coming out that they were the ones who went ahead and fixed it. It is curious to hear the question about who's footing the bill, because it does pose another question about like the relationship going forward and like, how are they going? They're working autonomously, but how much, how autonomously can you actually be? How much of the bill was Microsoft footing for things like that. But it's cool to see for fans, man, because you see people go back, man. It's so crazy to see. I'm seeing screenshots of 100K people online in like Modern Warfare 2, 50K people online in Black Ops 2. Like these games I played a fuck ton of, Logan. I played nothing but like that was my prime years of Call of Duty for me. So it's kind of cool to see people go back. It kind of speaks to now. This is one I would say is a win for us on the side of maybe reviving some old IPs. I know we had this conversation earlier, Logan, because you see people really enjoy these games, and this is like a real life example of that, right? I know it wasn't your pick on the poll, you know what I mean, but this is a real life example of like that nostalgia and that being a big deal, and it kind of lends itself to where Call of Duty is at the present day. I mean, how fed up are people with the current Call of Duty in the state that it's in, right? That you got to look at this and say, well, people are pretty damn fed up if they're going back that far to play Call of Duty, right? Like these games, nobody were playing these games, right? How many people were playing like Black Ops 1? Like what was the average monthly user base on Black Ops 1 like 3-4
servers were
months
broken.
Ago? So. Yeah, you couldn't even play a game.
The servers were broken, so that's
like
the
what
difference,
am I even talking about? That's what I'm saying, Pong. Like what am I even talking about? You can't even play a.
And it's not just that they're playing it; they're buying them, right?
Yeah,
that's the whole thing too. Again, whether or not this is temporary, and I do agree, of course, nostalgia is going to wear off eventually.
Yeah, it will.
Whatever the case may be. But the fact that people are buying the games digitally, the fact that GameStop is selling through physical copies, the 360 copies. Again, I just talked to Psychonauts last night on Xbox Ultimate, and he's working at GameStop, and they're shipping in from the warehouse quantities of all these old Call of Duties, which they probably had stacked in there collecting dust. They're shipping them out to the stores left and right because people are walking in and buying the physical copies. This is the power of Call of Duty. This is the power of the franchise. This is what makes it, again, when you talk about Mount Rushmore and the history of video games, Call of Duty, the sustainability is unbelievable. And this is a great moment to show that. And I think that for Xbox themselves, there's something something more going on. And I think that they're going to go back and put an emphasis on backwards compatibility again in some ways, because under the radar move this week on top of the Call of Duty fix was they fixed the Shadowrun servers as well. You can now plug in Shadowrun, one of the most balanced first-person shooters in the history of first-person shooters that very few people played. And that's really strange that they went back and decided to do that, because as Logan pointed out, this costs money. This isn't free. Like, this is costing money to do this kind of stuff. So I think it does give me hope, to your point too, PTK, that this potentially, this kind of resurgence in Call of Duty, even temporary, could provide enough benefit, both financially and just from an attention standpoint, that the lights go on at Xbox and they say, you know what, maybe it is worthwhile to investigate some of the licensing issues that are out there, right? The expired licenses for, Ultimate Alliance, Marvel's Ultimate Alliance, right? That people have been clamoring because yes, you can play them backwards compatible, but they're not available on the store anymore because of the licensing. So what would it take to call up Disney and say, you know what, we just acquired ABK. We'd like to start selling.
That would be hard
Marvel
as it is right now.
Right.
Disney's giving
right.
away
Disney,
licenses
right?
left and
Correct. So I think that this resurgence from the nostalgia standpoint of Call of Duty could open up the opportunity for some of those other games out there to come back, right? Again, there's X-Men games, there's Wolverine game, right? There's all these different things. And I'm not talking about them remaking or making a brand new game, just reopening up the old games for sale again. I think this could definitely help in that matter, but it is cool to see. It's fun to see people reliving the old 360 days again, even if it is just for a short time period. It is great to see. And I said this morning on Living Split Screen. Maybe, I've been thinking about this because, yes, Call of Duty still sells immense. The sales are incredible every single year. It's the top selling game every single year. No matter how much people complain, no matter how much
crazy.
people, it is crazy.
It's crazy, man.
But is there room for, once this ABK deal goes through, is there room for potentially a Call of Duty classic, right? If they make a game from the ground up, strip out, and I understand this goes against all the business nowadays, this goes against everything, strip out all the nonsense that has been added through the years on top of Call of Duty and go back to the basics with Call of Duty and just call it Call of Duty Classic. Because we see this, Ubisoft is doing this right now with Assassin's Creed, right? They're stripping everything out and they're going back to the classic Assassin's Creed with Mirage and making a much smaller experience, and they're putting it out there. Right. So why not do it with Call of Duty? Because you see, to your point, PTK, people want that old gameplay, right? That old gameplay still has a place in this modern age. And I think it might be something that you could look into. Just an idea.
What you think about that, Logan?
There are two excellent ideas and points that I was thinking while Fuzzy and Pong were talking, and one of them was the fact that our Xbox team that was working on backwards compatibility and FPS boost and stuff, like auto HDR, things like that. They said that they stopped because of a license block. Like there were so many games that they could do. They did as many as they could, and everything else is too much of a licensing nightmare for them to be able to play around to bring those games to backwards compatibility. I want to know how many Activision titles were part of that issue.
List, that original list, right? That they couldn't get, right? Because I'm sure there's a list somewhere sitting on a hard drive somewhere, Logan, of a bunch of games that they just could not get licenses for. So
I would love to know what that team is working on. I know that there's this huge refresh on the home screen that's coming in alpha rings right now that'll eventually get pushed out to the Xbox. And I can imagine that team is probably working on whatever the next iteration of Xbox is going to be. They're probably planning on software tools and features that they want to have shipping with that, whatever the next Xbox console is. But I genuinely did want them to continue adding FPS boost, auto HDR, things like that to a lot of the other games, especially given that there are so many that would be bringing in licensing to Xbox with this deal. So I would love to see that, just to kind of touch on what Fuzzy was talking. The other thing that I could see with Pong's comment about them doing a Classic Zero, it is very interesting to me that we are currently in a nostalgia hype right now. Everything is getting remade,
It's crazy.
remastered, pushed out.
It really
Dead
is, man.
Space, you know, we had
Resident
all
Evil.
the Resident Evils.
Mhm.
And then I look at something like Gundam Evolution, which is Overwatch, but with Gundams. Gundam's a huge franchise. It's been around forever.
And it gets
Overwatch
closed down.
it's getting closed down after a year of being out. And I take a look at that and I think, you know, that was a good game. It did not get enough love that it deserved for how fun it is being able to play around in Gundams, especially given the legacy of Gundam and how popular that IP is, you know, over in Japan, but also here. If you grew up in the 90s watching Gundam Wing on Toonami and stuff, that was like it's kind of how we got introduced to anime back in the day. And now I'm seeing like all of these people jumping on Call of Duty servers that are old Call of Duty games because those are the ones that they want to do. And I'm like, it's a little concerning to me. It's not a bad thing to want to go back and play that. I went and played GoldenEye. I put some time into GoldenEye when that came out. It had been forever since I'd been able to play it. But I wonder if maybe we're just pushing a little bit too much on those old IPs to kind of keep us going and keep money rolling in instead of doing new things. Like I see Ubisoft making new games. They've got a new shooter that is going to be, I can't even remember what the name of it is. It's like X-Defiant. Thank you. X-Defiant looks fantastic, but I guarantee you that game is a passion project compared to the Assassin's Creed, where they literally looked at it. They said, people are getting sick of the RPG open world elements. We need to strip all this out. We need to get it turned around faster, do a shorter game, make it single player, cut out all the RPG junk. And that's going to be their bread and butter for a while. I'm a little worried that we're getting to a point where Call of Duty is taking off with the old games, and games like Gundam Evolution are dying because not enough people play it, because there's, you know, it comes into that question of there being too many games as a service games. And I don't know, it's a weird fear for me, but yeah, I do think that if they were to do a Call of Duty classic, a lot of people would really love it. Lot of people would.
Definitely.
And I think
agree.
It would be better supported. They'd be able to put in a lot of the security features and a lot of the accessibility features that I think are in current games that you don't get with those old 360 games. And I would actually be more in line, or I'd be more interested in that than I would for them continuing to support some of the older games.
Yeah. It's a really, really cool concept. And just considering, like, so just on the whole idea of, like you said, we might be getting to this breaking point that you talked about, right? Where the nostalgia might be a bit too much. We kind of been leaning on that for a little bit too long. We always have this conversation here at the podcast, like how much does nostalgia play into, like, you know, where people at and the trends in gaming, and like, but ultimately it's going to happen. We're going to have, you know, like you mentioned Gundam as an example. Unfortunately, it just kind of got caught up in the fallout, right? People vote with their wallets, and sometimes games get passed over that probably shouldn't. But it happens all the time. It almost doesn't even matter what's going on in the larger picture of gaming. That's going to happen. There's going to be casualties. So I've kind of like settled on that. I get the whole idea of there's too many games as a service. That's going to be happening, right? Like, that's, people are going to just copy and try shit, and like, you know, this genre is on fire right now. Let's try doing that. We even see the big companies doing it. You just mentioned Ubisoft. They are the fucking king of doing that. Let's hop on the wave. We don't care what's going on. Eve got like 18 different shooters. He like, let's try all the different kind of shooters. We got an extraction one. We got a regular FPS. We got a team one. We got a tactical one. Like, something got to stick, right? Like, something's going to stick at some point if we keep trying this. So, I don't know, man. It's a slippery slope. And I think you brought this up, Pong. I think that's something that you've mentioned as well, too, trying to balance out both. And that was going to be the issue with the Xbox by bringing this behemoth on. That was always the question that a lot of people didn't talk about. Like, how are they going to even manage this goddamn thing, right? And try and make... Go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, it's an interesting topic, you know, and one that we've flirted with or had discussions about, that Logan just brought up too. And we've seen this in other entertainment industries, right? We see, you know, movies, TVs shows being redone, remade, brought back, trying to bring them back. Some hit, some don't hit. We see Disney now going back to their animated catalog and making live versions of all those movies, those classics. Like this is something that's this is something that we see a lot of. And again, unfortunately, we are seeing a lot of failures. It's a high risk industry at the end of the day, right? Yep. It's high risk. And so when you see success, it's a copycat industry as well, which is everywhere, right? That we see this all over the place, not just in video games, but it's a copycat. So you see a company like Capcom revive themselves from a terrible place on the backs of their old IP by making great remakes of Resident Evil, and all of a sudden that leads to more success. Now, to Capcom's credit, which I gave them in my intro for a game like Exo Primal, they are trying to do different things again.
Yep.
They're not just sticking to that formula. They're saying, okay, now we're back. Let's try some new, fresh, original IP.
That was going to be my kind of my opposite to what you were talking about Gundam, but you have a game like Exo Primal, which is actually kind of thriving though, Logan, on the opposite end of the spectrum. That just kind of came out of nowhere. Same position, right? As Gundam, I would say probably even less hype than that Gundam game had, less of a name because it's a brand new IP. Obviously, people looked at the game, probably thought it was a knockoff Gundam. So you got that too, and it's still doing as well as it possibly could do for a game like that. So that's another example of, yes, you have a game like Gundam that's not working and it's just going to close, but you also have a game like like Exo Primal, who remains to be seen. You know, we'll see how 6 months where the game is at. If they can actually build on something, they might actually have something, and that's kind of how the industry balances itself out.
Which one of those had Game Pass though?
Okay, so yeah, there is that. So obviously.
The benefits are there, right? I mean, again, from Game Pass, you're going to see those wins from titles like Exo Primal. I just think overall the discussion is interesting because this industry is also different from other entertainment industries because we still have a thriving indie scene. We still have a thriving AA scene, whereas with movies and TV, you don't. I mean, sure, there's indie movies, obviously, there's small budget movies, but they don't get the kind of attention that a video game from a smaller studio can. And we're still seeing fresh ideas out of there, even if the larger corps are being more safe and relying on a lot of the nostalgia and going back to old franchises or continuing franchises nonstop. So I think that that's where the difference is. And I think that that will keep things fresh because a lot of new ideas come out of there. And all of a sudden the big corps, sure, they look over and say, well, we can do that better. We're going to copy that. We're just going to do it. But at the same point, it does bring, those different styles, those different genres, those different, types of games up to the forefront when a bigger studio does take over sometimes. Sometimes the indie games remain as popular as they've ever been just because the idea was so good. So I do think that's the difference here with that. I don't think we're going to lose that, but I do understand Logan's concerns. Again, at some point, ideas run dry, and at some point this industry is so big and there's so many creatives making so much different things that eventually some ideas just it's been overplayed, right? It's just one of those things that's going to happen eventually. But I think we're still in a good spot, and I'm not as fearful right now. But yes, there's a reason why the nostalgia still sells. There's a reason why if you do it right, you get praised for it, like we saw with Dead Space, like we've seen it with the Resident Evils, etc., on and on. But I still think there's room for a lot of growth and new ideas here. And I think we will continue to see them because some companies are still going to try new things no matter what at the end of the day and see if they stick. So, but it is a very, very interesting discussion. I'm glad you brought it up, Logan, because it is complex to say the least.
Definitely.
And we've seen the bad examples of like some of those remakes when it came to the Grand Theft Auto, was it Vice City and whatnot, as far as that trilogy, where they didn't put the extra effort in, and it pretty much was more broken than the modded ones that people were making themselves, type of thing. So it is a double-edged sword, but sometimes those nostalgia classics might help foot the bill for that passion project as well. So I think having like a Call of Duty Classic would be a good idea for like that off year. That would be a perfect slot where it may not take as much dev time or as much manpower to get that out in a time where it's kind of like the off year for Call of Duty, if you tend to space those things out. And you could possibly do that with other series, but then again, you have that proliferation of like, all right, well, we have the numbered Fallouts and some side Fallouts, and do we do the Fallout Classics, almost like a collection, like, you know, Master Chief Collection in between type of thing, or do we just do, you know, a remake of this one numbered series, one that's, you know, over 10 years old, which that's another thing. I think some of these remakes or remasters or things like that should have a general guidance of it needs to be at least 10 years old, not something that was, you know, maybe came out the tail end of last gen and is getting redone for now type of deal, where it's like less than 5 years old. Not really knocking Last of Us 2, but if the rumors are true as far as that, unless it's just a PC port or something like that, it seems like it's a little too soon. But something that's, you know, 10 years old,
Yeah.
It has a place. I mean, at that point, you might have a new generation that didn't play the original that's coming in, because we have to understand, and as old as some of us are, like myself, it's like 10 years ago, there's like, well, my kids weren't even old enough to play video games. So it's one of those things where, you know, it's something to consider. And hopefully, you know, us as the consumer, we'll speak with our wallets if it gets too egregious with a lot of these remakes and things.
Yeah. And that's what I kind of always hope on, Logan. And go ahead. I know you got a point. Go ahead.
I got a question, actually. Do you guys, because I mean, we have a fix for this. Like, Xbox has come up with a concept on how this works. It's a tough thing for Sony fans to really figure out, but smart delivery is a concept.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would imagine that smart delivery should extend beyond just whatever the Xbox Series X and S consoles are. So maybe remasters and stuff like that, maybe those are just something that is intrinsic with smart delivery, and these studios that have these games that are coming out Xbox One generation being brought forward into the Xbox Series generation will get brought forward even into the Xbox next series or next generation through smart delivery, and remasters won't become as necessary because eventually the hardware will just kind of make up for the design or the limitations that were there in the past. But
True.
I don't know, maybe it's a nice future to live in, but what do you guys think about that?
We're seeing proof in the pudding right now, right? With Call of Duties themselves playing from 360 on Series X and playing better than ever before, even without any touch-ups, right? So your point is you know, something that obviously we've all praised here. It's one of the best features that Xbox ever came up with. It pays dividends time and time again.
I don't hear about it much more.
Yeah, no, because it went away, right? But those of us that still go back to 360 games, those of us that do use backwards compatibility, appreciate it every single time. The fact that I can do that without having to own the old hardware. And I'd love to see, Logan, an industry-wide. Phil's talked about this as well, because he is so big into preservation that he's talked about this. I'd love to see everybody get together and have an absolute 100% agreement that they're going to do everything in their power to make sure that the conservation effort for games goes forward. Unfortunately, we do have a bunch of players. You pointed out one that see dollar signs, right? That see dollar signs going away if they give the ability, a full ability, right, to do something like that, like Xbox has done. And unfortunately, I don't know if you'll ever get all the minds to meet, but I would like to see Phil or somebody try to get as many groups, publishers, developers together underneath one spot and come to some sort of agreement where they all agree that is going to be an effort that they put in going forward, if it's not already available on some of those games. So, I think it is something that certainly would be a big movement across the industry if they could implement it the way that Xbox currently has, for sure.
Yeah. And so I guess game preservation being the biggest vehicle, right? The biggest driver of this whole idea. And that's really cool ultimately. And, you know, Phil, that's his thing, right? He's kind of, that's one thing about his legacy that you can always point to. He's always from the very beginning talked about, you know, he's been a big proponent of, you know, being able to go back and play old games and bringing them forward. So, you don't hear about that feature very much at all, if any, but it is super dope that it is in place. This is why they do those things that back then a lot of people didn't feel like that feature made any sense, Logan, right? You got so many questions and articles from, you know, I understand some of the articles were a bit, right? Like, come on now. Like, you guys know what this is, but I understand you're just cheesing to the crowd, right? We're in the baloney section. I get it. You got to play to what's going on. So you're gonna act like you don't know what it is. But like you see now, like right now, we're talking about this. Like, oh, they have something already and have had something for like 3 years now for that kind of stuff, right? So it's kind of dope to see that kind of that stuff all come back around full circle. And then we're talking about Call of Duty. That's also tied in with Xbox and them kind of thinking ahead, right? So far ahead that we didn't even realize we're going to be utilizing these features at this point in time, and it actually just having an avenue to do so, right? Because this would be much harder had they not implemented that, I would assume, right, Logan?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, if I gotta spend, a certain amount of money for Xbox Core or Xbox Game Pass to continue to support those servers, then I'm coming around to it, because it may not be Call of Duty for me. It could be Sea of Thieves in like 10 years. I don't know, but there's going to be something that I care about that I'm like, please don't shut down those servers. I really want to play. And then I know I will be very happy that they'll be supporting it.
Yeah, no, it's an awesome, cool concept. I love the fact that it's always been like a pillar that Phil stands on. And it's kind of cool to see, and I love that idea, Pong. You're almost like a United Nations agreement, right? Almost like
yeah. And,
no
we
more
do
$10
have
upcharges.
Right, no more $10 upcharge. I mean, even if there was a fee associated, like some way that's implemented in as like a tax or whatever, that I knew was going towards that preservation of video games, I would have zero problem with that, right? If I knew that was the fact, some type of formal agreement. But this is also why the proponents of emulation are correct. Emulation is the really only true way we have right now. But unfortunately, now we have single player games that are online required. So now we have that different level that Logan just pointed out. Well, when they shut down the servers, even if you have a game that's single player that requires that activation, we have no protections as consumers, because obviously, again, I'm against most regulation. There needs to be some regulation, but we do know that the tech industry is so fast and so advanced all the time that the regulatory bodies are behind by decades sometimes. And this is one of them, protecting our purchases now from that eventuality when a company or publisher decides to shut down a server on a single player game and you can't verify my license anymore. So the thing that I purchased, that I paid money for, is no longer mine. I actually never owned it. I only own the license. That's a problem. Right. That's a massive problem that needs to be addressed in the future somehow, some way as well.
Why is the FTC going after Xbox over this deal and not that? Like,
correct.
I just want to be able to sell my digital game to someone so that they can have it, because I'm not going to play it anymore. But I can't do that. But the FTC, God forbid, Xbox acquires another publisher shortly after Bethesda, because what are they going to do? They're going to ruin the whole gaming sphere.
Right.
Well, that's what another company told them to do, kind of thing, or at least they use that as that opportunity to push that, big tech bad type of deal. But yeah, I would love to be able to sell either my old digital games or pass them on to my kids. Like, I'm getting up there in age. I got a pretty decent collection of games. I'm not going to play them in the afterlife. So if I want to leave those to my kids, it would be nice to be able to have a legal way of doing that, because if they log into my account, that breaks terms of service, and it's just it's silly in this regard now, where you don't have a way to either pass that stuff down or exchange it, trade it in, whatever the case may be. But I guess Microsoft was a little too ahead of the curve before when they did that always online DRM, because I think that's what they were trying to push for that.
yeah.
And I guess, well, now we know they're a little bit better at messaging in comparison to back then, but man, it would make more sense for the FTC to focus on the consumer and things along those lines. Or, as I always like to point out, like the cable industry or electric companies and things like that. Those are the ones that probably should be looked at more. But video games, $70 billion. Oh, they want their handout, or at least they want some sort of I guess lobbying group to take them to dinner or something. I don't know.
They want that clout.
Enough politics on that.
Yeah, they want that clout. That's all that's going on. But yeah,
it's Microsoft. If the name is Microsoft or Apple, that's when they start to get involved.
Yep. Yeah, or Meta, something like
Meta,
that.
Google.
Yeah, Google. Right. Right. So we kind of know where we.
Meta.
I know, right? But no, ultimately, man, this is a great topic, man. So much to talk about. Just happy to see everything going on with Call of Duty and just everything going on with just Activision and Xbox, seeing the new energy. But let me go ahead and throw this over to one of my compadres here. They're gonna take us into the next topic. So we're gonna start with you, Fuzz, this week, man. Take us into our next topic, bro.
I see one of the things you put as a headline as far as the Elden Ring and Game Pass. I'm probably going to talk about some Forza at the tail end of this, but I'll start off with Sarah Bond's recent tweets, because it's not just Elden Ring that I guess she was hinting to. She did a tweet not too long ago with, like an old person and a ring next to it. And then another one was like a picture of a street and a couple of fists. So I think they're starting to ramp up before Gamescom of some of the, popular games that, they didn't make the day and date type of deal, but are fairly, within 3 to 6 month range. Elden Ring being a lot older, but Street Fighter possibly being the newer one on the block type of deal. It looks like she's made a tweet as far as those games coming to Game Pass, or at least just made a tweet about those games. Now, it doesn't guarantee that it's
Didn't
coming
say
to
Game Pass, yeah.
But she's been known to do similar things in the past, and then eventually we see those games in Game Pass. But I guess the big question I'll ask you guys, as far as between now and Gamescom, what do you think as far as if rumors hold up with Elden Ring and possibly Street Fighter, what other games would you like to see to come to Game Pass that are fairly recent or within the past 6 months kind of thing that may get announced at Gamescom? I'll start with you, Logan. What are some of your preferred games to be in Game Pass?
I mean, if I had I still think the Resident Evil games, like, let's just I wish they would have bought Capcom. I really do, but
they almost did.
I'm not in charge of it. I know it's right there. Do it. Freaking do it.
Capcom had to get successful again and ruin it all, right?
So I'm sitting there looking at like all the Yakuza games, and I'm like, they did that. What's going on? What's the problem there? They got all the Yakuza's in there. Like, what's going on, Capcom? What you get you Resident Evils in the Game Pass? I would love for Resident Evil 4 to get in Game Pass. That would be huge. Is one of the, they've already got Exoprimal. They had oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the game that came out. What was it, like February?
Monster Hunter.
Was it? Oh yeah,
Monster Hunter. Both
Monster Hunter Rise, but what was the other one?
Oh, Monster Hunter World. I think that was the one a few years ago, right?
Rise, Rise came out and was on Game Pass, but didn't they have a Souls-like that came out? Wulong.
You're talking about Wolong?
Yeah.
That was
Wolong
Capcom, wasn't it?
No, that's Konami.
No, that's Konami.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yep. So, but yeah, like having those like on Game Pass already, like that's a huge win for Xbox.
You do have Path of the Goddess coming up too. That's Capcom.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like everything but Resident Evil. It's like they're like, "Hey, Capcom, what do you got for Game Pass?" And they're like, "Well, we've got this, we've got this, we've got this." And they're like, "What about that? What about that Resident Evil in the back?" They're like, "Oh no, you can't have the Resident Evil. That's going to be our bread and butter for a while." And I'm like, that would be amazing if they could get Resident Evil. I would like that. I would love to have Star Wars brought in as well too.
Nice.
Well, that's going to happen, right? Eventually,
eventually, because of the EA play, but
right.
It'd be nice if it's sooner
rather than later.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Correction, I just realized I said Konami. It's Koei Tecmo. My bad.
Oh, Koei.
I said Konami. I had Konami on the head. Sorry.
We did get a Resident Evil 7, I think, a while ago. Like that was one of the early ones, but at that point, it was like at the 6 month point or year point when they went into Game Pass. But that was like the last Resident Evil that we got in the Game Pass, I think.
Yeah. It just doesn't happen. So those would be mine too. I know they're not going to happen. I realize that there's no way these announcements are going to happen, but I would love it, man. That'd be such a win.
Yeah. Nice choices. All right, PTK. What games would you like to see that are fairly recent make their possibly announcement at Gamescom coming to Game Pass?
You already know where I'm going with this. You already know. We don't even need to go too far. Diablo, come on, man. That we need We need that announcement like right away, man. Like I guess we're all assuming, but there's no guarantee, obviously, that it actually happens, right? But I'm assuming that's something that's on the table. I'm sure they've shot the idea across the table. There's been emails. There's no way they haven't. The game's done too well. I get all of the discourse around it. That's just community shit. It happens in every game, right? Like I don't care about that stuff ultimately because that just means the game is worth it. If there's that much discourse, there's enough, like people care about the game enough to actually have that type of opinion. So it's not a bad thing per se. It happens with really good games that tend to stick around for a while. They tend to be good for a long period of time. Look at Destiny, your Halos, CODs. As big as these games are, they have toxic ass communities, and half of them don't like the game, but they still log in every single day and play it. So I'm used to all of that stuff. But Diablo would be the first game immediate right off the bat. That's a super obvious one. I know Mikey Barr just shot the whole damn idea down, but we know that was all prior to the ABK deal and them being where they're at currently now, right? This all pretty much being a formality and the deal being done pretty much at this point. It's just we're just waiting on a couple, T's to get crossed and I's to get dotted. That's it, right? Some regulation stuff to get passed and everybody to smile and shake hands at that point. So, but yeah, Diablo, that's easy right away. I was trying to think of something else that I can't really think of anything else that's obvious for me. Yeah, I'd have to sit and like let that marinate a little bit. But Diablo to me is that's right off the rip. I need that in Game Pass. It's gonna do crazy. You could probably see I assume there'd be another surge in the amount of people playing it if it came to Game Pass. I feel like it'd be a huge surge. That in PC Game Pass be huge, man. You see people get in droves. I think that number would shoot through the roof. It was already huge. I don't know where we're at as far as what we think Diablo sold already. I think
they made $1 billion already, like over $1 billion. Like they did that thing with the 666 million, but that was, they had made more than that. They just use that number because it ties in with 666.
So I just quick figure then from the three of you guys. How much you guys think Diablo sold already? Just real quick.
Let's see.
At least probably around 10.
Yeah.
Already? You said 10 million?
I'd say 12 to 13. I think somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, it's gotta be 10 or better, because they're sitting at $1 billion already earned from it. And some of that could be like the cosmetic stuff, but they've at least hit 10 million. At least.
Okay.
The interesting thing about that, if I can jump in real quick too, is if those sales are based off of game code sales, then that would not include the inflated price of the collector's edition because it didn't actually have a game code.
Oh, good point. That's a good point. Yep. So that could be even more impressive than it actually looks ultimately, right? So and like I said, we might be lowballing it. I see Spider-Man in the chat. He said 15 to 20. Like we don't really know for sure at this point, but I think it's easily over 10. I think we can all agree.
I wouldn't be surprised. Like, didn't they say there was at least 2 million people in the early access?
Yes.
Was it more than that?
It was 1 million for sure the first weekend.
Yeah, I remember them saying somewhere between 1 and 2 million for the early access. So those are the people that bought the $100 edition. So they've got to be close to probably at this point 15 mil, but 10 is a safe bet. 12, 13, somewhere in there is probably where they're at right now. But we know as time goes on, it's going to probably be more. But putting that in Game Pass, Jesus, hopefully the servers will be able to handle it. They've been pretty good with servers, other than maybe the game quits. Well, I've had one of those since the season started, but just before the season, I would have like maybe one a day where it would quit or something like that. But man, it would definitely probably pile up with a lot more people being on it between PC and console. And I'd probably wind up trying it on Steam Deck, since I'd have the PC access through Game Pass or Game Pass app, or not app, but the whole thing that they have where you can put Game Pass on your Steam Deck. So yeah, that would be a pretty big spool up as far as people, but pretty good pick. Pong, what are some of the games you would like to see them possibly announce at Gamescom coming to Game Pass? I think I have an idea of one that's probably on your radar, but
probably
definitely definitely tell us what ones are you looking forward to?
Yeah, a couple of older ones that nobody else mentioned here because you guys all had great thoughts on this. Gotham Knights, and then I would definitely like to see Dead Island 2 come to Game Pass as well. I think both of those would. For Gotham Knights, again, it didn't. There was so much discourse around it. And again, you all know, you've been listening to me for long enough. I'm not the superhero guy, right? I don't care about superhero games. Like everybody else does, generally speaking. But I think Gotham Knights deserves a second chance for people to experience, even though they still haven't patched in 60 frames, which is something I thought they should have worked on or at least talked about working on. But I think enough people played it around me that had a good time with it. If they could get over the 30 frames hump, that I think that Game Pass would be a great boost for Gotham Knights and for WB, who obviously needs money. They're having their own issues. So I think Gotham Knights is one. And then Dead Island 2. Again, this is one I'm planning on picking up down the road. Again, so many games this year. I'm a big Dead Island fan. Loved the reaction to this game coming out after 8 years of development, 3 different studios. Well, you know, the fact that it came out to be one of the most polished games this year in 2023 is absolutely a testament to the work done over there. And I'd like to see more people experience it. I think a lot of people right now in
that's a great choice.
With how many games,
that's a really
with how many games out there, a lot of people might have held off on it, like I have. Love to see it coming to Game Pass. I think it'd be a great addition for it as well. And then I'll give one that is not out yet, but I think, Fuzzy, this is the one you're probably been alluding to because I've been pounding the table left and right for this game. Me and Steel both have. And other
here we
people
go. I already know where
it.
you're going.
Gamescom announcement. It comes out the 25th. You want to shock? I mean, they already could have some big announcements at Gamescom. Obviously, if the ABK deal goes through, it's going to be a big celebration there. Starfield could be on the floor. Like I said, I think that Starfield definitely could have a presence there. But if you want to make another kind of mic drop moment, or just a really, I don't know, most people probably wouldn't consider a mic drop moment, but let's just say a really big
fucking
Game
deal.
Pass announcement. Sure. Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon coming to Game Pass would be gigantic. We have confirmation now today that there is multiplayer up to 6 players, and an additional 3 players can watch the matches as well.
That. Wow,
yes, 2 to 6 players. 2 to 6 players, so up to 3v3.
Beautiful.
It is, and Armored Core again. I'll always mention this, was never a big seller. Okay, never. Again, Armored Core 5 sold like there's no official numbers, but like the one number that's thrown around consistently is like 250,000 copies. Okay, the fact that From Software, the fact that From Software is now where they are at due to the Soul series, and then obviously taking it to a whole nother level with Elden Ring, right? I think that they want to make Armored Core. They've talked about it. They want multiple franchises. They want to get on a better cadence with their releases. If that's the case, and they're trying to bring Armored Core to the forefront, it's a niche genre, right? It is a niche genre. It's a popular genre, but it's a niche genre. Let's call it what it is. You drop that into Game Pass, and they owe Xbox one. Whatever happened to the Elden Ring marketing rights, nobody knows for sure, but they kind of owe us one. So I think that at the end of the day, getting Armored Core 6 into Game Pass, letting people try it out would be a big boon, not just for Xbox, but for From Software, who are trying to drive, this franchise home, brand new, which nobody's seen it in a long, long time.
And it might not cost as much as people think it would, because like you said, people don't realize. Now I get it. People just caught up in the From Software.
Yes, there will be more people that buy this game than ever before, because
of From Software, not because of the actual game itself. So I want to make sure we make that clear to everybody listening too, because that's what it is. So this, you thinking that, oh no, there's no way the people that made Elden Ring, oh no way, this game is not Elden Ring. This is not that. So I just want to make sure we're clear that like this is absolutely possible. It should be possible. Like they should be able to sit down and negotiate a deal like this. Yeah, because like you said, it had no fan base until it was not fan base, but it wasn't something that like outside of their wasn't on the radar. It wasn't on the radar at all. It wasn't a household name or anything. Nobody was talking about it until we got the announcement that they were actually making this game. So like you got to understand that this actually could be a thing. Like I know it feels crazy, like we're asking for like I don't
No.
know, Red Dead 3 or something. It's not
no,
that.
no.
You know what I mean?
It's not. No, it's not. It's got a hype boost due to the From Software's popularity right now overall as a developer. It's got a hype boost, which is great. They, like I said, they're gonna sell. This will probably sell more than all the other Armored
Definitely. It's
Cores
almost
combined.
guaranteed to.
Okay, like
almost
it
guaranteed,
legitimately
yeah.
has that chance. But it comes out August 25th. Gamescom starts August 23rd. You want to get all the pre-sales and all that good stuff. I mean, again, we get late announcements for Game Pass all the time. What a way to start off Gamescom if you announce that Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon is going to be there day and date. I just think it would be a big win on both sides for all parties. Phil is a huge mech game fan. He'd love to see the older mech games come back, but he always talks about the licensing issues. Well, here you got one with no licensing issues. You just drop the bag, get it into Game Pass. It's associated with Xbox. That Game Pass, the Game Pass association automatically is a win. It automatically becomes more of an Xbox game as soon as you drop it in day and date. So I just think it would be huge. So Armored Core 6, I will continue to pound the table for.
Nice. Yeah, I think that one, and maybe even Elden Ring, both come in the Game Pass. Get From Software to put both of their games in there. One a little bit older, over a year, and I'm pretty sure it's probably slowed down on sales. I think last they reported it was somewhere around 18 million? I know it was at least 16 million that they sold at one point, but I think it may have been closer to 18 at this point, with it being a little over a year. But yeah, Armored Core coming to Game Pass day and date would be huge. And then, like you guys said, it shouldn't be as expensive because it is more niche. Most of the driving force would be just From Software's name because of Elden Ring, but put both of those Game Pass. I think that would be a 1-2 combo. But yeah, if Capcom could put Resident Evil in there, as far as Resident Evil 4, or at least give us Resident Evil 2, but that one's a lot older, but 4 would be nice, because considering the time frame from when it was released to now is a decent window. Yeah. And then what was the
Luis Jose? I don't discriminate, bud. Even if a genre or a game isn't my favorite or up my alley, I still will talk about it, because I love talking about video games, and I don't discriminate. I don't hate just because it's not for me. I will talk about it and give my thoughts on it, and in a neutral way. So that's where I'm at.
Okay. No, but awesome selections, guys, as far as what you'd like to see announced at Gamescom. Fingers crossed, maybe we get the ABK announcement, so we do get the Diablo 4 thrown in the Game Pass.
We need that, man.
Yeah, because it looks like everything is kind of winding down, and that would be a perfect time to announce it. I'm figuring from a Gamescom standpoint, we get a controller. Hopefully we get some, Game Pass announcements, maybe like Pong said, hopefully we get to see Starfield on the game floor, and let some of the journalists and people that attend have hands-on type of deal. But man, awesome thoughts on that. Great to hear your feedback, guys.
Awesome. So we're gonna turn this over to Mr. Pong Harvey. So, man, where we going this week, brother?
We're going to get a temperature check around the panel here on a topic that's popped up again this week, is the smoke builds that PlayStation is coming out with the PS5 Pro.
Yeah.
We got another report from Tom Henderson. Shout out to Tom. I'm going to use Benji Sales. Shout out to Benji, who does great work out here in these streets as well. Benji put out kind of a summary, as he always does. PlayStation 5 Pro details via Tom Henderson. Codename Project Trinity. Been in development since early 2022. Dev kits going out in November. They give some stats, and shout out to brother from another guy, Jasper, Lore Master Jasper, who in the DMs, he did some math on these numbers, because these numbers mean nothing to me from a non-tech guy standpoint whatsoever. So Jasper broke it down. He did the math, and it comes out to be right around 18 teraflops is what this would wind up being. Assuming that it is, he went with the assumption that this is going to be a 2.5 gigahertz speed. He broke it down and said it's about 18 teraflops, accelerated ray tracing, and it's targeting a November 2024 release date. So again, this is going to be a kind of a quick one, but I want to get some brief thoughts on this. First of all, just your initial thoughts. Does this make sense for Sony to do this generation? And then second, It doesn't have to be a big, long expose or anything like that unless you want to. Do you believe one way or the other that Xbox follows suit if this winds up being true? So I'm going to start, obviously, with our guest tonight, Captain Logan. What do you think about Sony doing this? Does this make sense for Sony to do this? Does this give them a benefit this generation? And then number 2, do you think Xbox follows suit? Yes or no? And if you want to give some whys, absolutely go right for it.
So does Sony need to do this? No. Are they going to do it? I think, yeah. I think they're going to pull the card from PlayStation 4. They're going to do the exact same thing they did there. They saw it work out really well for them. I think they want to stay ahead of the generation. I think they are doing whatever they can to stay ahead in the generation. Does Xbox need to do this? I think, yeah, but I don't think they're going to. Having a mid-gen refresh will help the folks that held off on the original Series S and X. They are going to be on the One X. They're going to be on the One. And they're going to be waiting for that mid-gen refresh where the hardware is tested and they can trust that the hardware is going to be good, just like they did with like the Xbox Series or the Xbox One X and stuff. I was talking about this with Luke and we had a really good discussion. I played devil's advocate about saying how I think that if Xbox were to do a mid-gen refresh to stay in line with PlayStation, that would also kind of elevate the development cycle right now for a lot of games. Like a lot of games want to push out higher fidelity, more frames. We've had this discussion just in the last few months about how a lot of people are upset about the concept of playing Redfall at 30 frames. We still don't know where that 60 frame patch is. We still don't know where that patch is. We also were kind of wondering, like, are we going to be getting Starfield, a single player game, locked in at 60 frames per second? You know what might help out with that? A mid-gen refresh. Now, I don't feel like the game developing studios, like I don't think the studios have really capitalized on the hardware, but at the same time, I look at PC and I'm thinking like PC is jumping forward. What are consoles doing to keep in line with PCs? Because essentially that's what they are now at this point. So I don't think I would spend the money on a mid-gen refresh. I don't think that the game companies have really taken full advantage of the hardware available, but this is an ever progressing like market. Like you have to keep up or you fall behind. The exception to that is Nintendo because they're playing by their own handbook. They're not listening to what everyone else is
Nintendo
going on.
Every time, bro. It always comes back. It irritates me. Like they're so smart for this shit, and it's so devious. It's so devious and
they
dirty.
don't want to be a part of the high performance.
Forget all of that, man.
Console space.
Man, that is crazy to me. They've literally they've insulated themselves from all of that.
Yes.
Next, their next Switch will be made by Texas Instruments. Like they're not, and they're gonna sell 80 million of them. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not gonna be an issue at all, and it's gonna annoy the fuck out of me. Like, I do not like. Anyway, go ahead. My rant is over. Go ahead.
Oh no, trust me. I was freaking out about the fact that Pong was saying that there was like 250,000 copies of Armored Core 5 being sold, and I'm like, ARMS sold 1 million. What is wrong with Nintendo fans? So, but yeah, as far as the mid-gen refresh, I believe this is going to happen. I think Sony is following the same thing that made their PlayStation 4 successful. I'm not surprised at all. I don't like it, but I also don't have to buy it. Like I'm still satisfied with my PS5. I'm still satisfied with my Series X's. So as far as like, you know, what's going to happen in the future, I don't think Xbox is going to do it. I think they probably should just to kind of stay in line. I think if they did that, they could bump up Little Man to be something a little more powerful than like what it is right now. Start maybe getting some more of those 60 frames at 1440 like it promises. The same way I think a lot of us were kind of thinking like, oh, we're finally going to get ray tracing. This is going to be cool. I can't wait to start playing some games with tracing of rays and stuff. And, you know, we really haven't seen a whole lot of that. So I don't know, but that's just kind of how I feel about it. It's a little mixed, but I just don't know. It's hard to say.
It is. The one thing that is a little daunting for Xbox if they do it is especially if they also bump this S, you're looking at 4 SKUs for.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
That is a lot to juggle.
But it,
Yeah.
it would be fun for PlayStation too, right? They still have the digital edition that we always forget about.
Yeah, but yeah, it would be that. But I'm just saying from a development standpoint, for like the developers and publishers looking at 4 different SKUs to develop a game for, whereas PlayStation's all the same, right? Their hardware is the same. Yes, one's a digital only, and I'm assuming that if they do this Pro, they will already have their Slim that's coming out, which is going to be digital only, and they're going to have the extra disc drive sold separately. So I'm assuming that the Pro will be digital only, and then obviously offer that disc drive sold separately. But it is all the same hardware. Whereas the S, if
That's
you
fair.
bump the S up, you've got another piece of hardware that the devs have to account for in that whole lineup, and then add another Series X Pro on top of it. That's 4 SKUs, man. I don't know, it's a lot to juggle. It does make sense why they would do it, to keep the power narrative alive, which Phil said they would never lose again, but that's to be seen. But interesting thoughts. Thank you for that. Really great thoughts on that topic. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Fuzzy. We've talked about this in Speculation Town from time to time, what was going to happen mid-gen refreshes, and whether we thought that we're going to follow either of the companies are going to follow suit. Obviously, all the smoke's been coming from the Sony side. We've had zero wisps of smoke from the Xbox side about this at all. The only thing we have confirmation, as Phil said multiple times, they're working on the next generation of hardware, right? That hardware's not going away. So interesting here that Sony seems like the more we go along here, we're going to find out real soon. If those dev kits go out in November, we know we're going to get another leak from somebody that confirms they've got a dev kit in hand. For you, 2 questions again. What does this do generally? Your general thoughts for Sony. Does this make sense for Sony? Is this a good move on their part? Should they just focus on their current hardware? As Captain Logan pointed out, as we've talked about plenty of times, we haven't even seen what we think is the potential of either Xbox's or PlayStation's hardware this generation. And then secondly, do you think if this is real, this goes through November 2024, they drop a PS5 Pro, is Xbox already working on their mid-gen refresh? We probably wouldn't see it in 2024 unless really they've been secretive, maybe 2025. Do they do it, or do they just hold off and ride out the gen? What do you think?
To me, it makes sense for PlayStation, so they can have the advantage as far as the hardware, although I don't feel it's needed. With them being the market leader, a lot of devs already focus on that platform first. So it's not as necessary, but in the grand scheme of things, if it was to go RDNA 2, full RDNA 2, that would actually benefit Xbox more, to the point where they probably wouldn't need to do a Pro at that point. Because a lot of the programming aspects now seem like, all right, focus on PS5 first, get it out the door, and then we'll focus on the optimization at the 11th hour for the Xbox Series X and whatnot, and try to get as much out of the Series S, even though we're not following the tool set that they gave us. We'll just push it out the door and then come back later, and then kind of fix things the way the tool set is set, so you can dial it back without having to handicap it right out the gate type of thing. A lot of times it just seems like the devs themselves, the brute force approach with PS5 type of deal being beefier hardware. I don't know if I'd buy it. Like, the thing that would have me on the fence is Gran Turismo coming to PC? If it's coming to PC, I'm probably not going to buy a PS5 Pro. Will it have ray tracing on track, like my favorite racing game coming out in October? Yeah. If not, like if the PS5 Pro can't do that, then what's the sense in doing it, kind of thing. So it's a mixed bag for me. I would just rather have some of their games come to PC as opposed to seeing a PS5 Pro, but it makes sense if they do a PS5 Pro. Now, on the Xbox side of things, like I said, I don't think we've really seen the full potential of this thing either. Like, we got 2 first-party games coming really soon, so we'll see what like Starfield and Forza are like. when all of the tools are put in place. And yeah, I know Starfield has the 30 frames instead of 60, but as far as the resolution and the smoothness of those 30 frames and just the overall aesthetic of the game, I think it'll be pushing the boundaries of what the hardware can do. So I would like to see what that looks like first before I even really consider. Worst case scenario, I might transfer both of my saves over to PC and go from there, type of thing. But I think it would make sense so you don't have that narrative as far as, well, Phil said you'd never lose the power narrative, or power thing for the console. And they probably already have something that they have on the shelf, maybe a little bit more memory, faster chipset. But like you guys are saying, having that extra SKU that's a different thing to code for. I mean, Microsoft could probably build it to the point where it could be a brute force machine where what works on the Series X will automatically be upscaled internally based on the hardware, but that's a risky move. But I don't know. I'm at the point where we're just now getting to next gen only games on these consoles. Let's see what they're like before, well, at least for me, before I spend another 500 or trade up to it,
We haven't
get
even
my
gotten in
350
the
credit
price at
towards it and
all.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
I want to see what these games are going to be like when they're only next gen and when they're using the full tool set, or they have all the bells and whistles that they claimed on the box. Like well, although the 8K on the box is a little bit laughable, it'll work on your 8K TV. It's just that it's upscaling to 8K. It's not a full 8K game, because let's be real, that's astronomical expense even on PC, and you have to be on the bleeding edge to even really do that. And good luck with getting 60 frames at that point. But
No.
yeah, I'm probably going to bow out on a mid-gen refresh as far as a pro. I would say from an Xbox standpoint, just go ahead and make the Series X without a disc. Make it,
Yeah,
$400.
the slim version of the series, right?
Yeah,
That's a good
that to me
counterpart,
would
yeah.
make the most sense.
Right.
Because when we start looking at next gen, that's going to be the bottom tier. Like our current Series X will be the minimum spec that they'll have to work with, type of thing. So just go ahead and start moving people now into the $400 version without a disc. Most people, like, was it 80% of the people are buying games digitally now? So why not do that? Make it so you can possibly replace a faceplate or maybe the vent cover at top, so you can do different colors or for special consoles or whatever. So you have that modularity to it, type of thing, or consider doing something in like design labs. But on the PlayStation side of things, a pro is probably inevitable. But let's just look at that Project Q, those leaked footage or leaked pics, which look legit, but it's running on Android, and it looks like they still left the sticker on the screen, or the touch thing for the screen still on there. So I don't know. Sony right now, they're going to try everything that they can to remain on top. So a PS5 Pro is definitely in the cards, I would say, but I'm not going to partake unless they're going to have to show and prove that it's worth me trading my current PS5 in for it.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to have a lot to prove with this, and especially again, since most people think that the systems haven't put out anything that represents a true power. So that is going to be a talking point, and that was a point of conversation that Steele and I had this morning on Living Split Screen is, well, what are you going to have to show off that system? And the way that it's kind of lining up, if they are honestly doing that, I said a great thing, which is exactly what you brought up, Fuzzy. They redo GT7. They come out with on-track ray tracing for that game. They call it GT7 Pro, and they sell it for an upgrade or sell a new game at full price, which Sony is certainly not against doing. Right, that would be a proof. And then obviously to be able to advertise that Wolverine in 2025 will use the full capabilities of the PS5 Pro. You got your best studio, in my opinion, in Insomniac on it. Like that, there's no doubt that the hype would be all through the roof, and there would be tons of people lining up to buy PS5 Pro with Wolverine on it, right? That was using the capabilities, right, of that machine. So I definitely think that there's potential there for Sony to capitalize. But PTK, I need to bring you in on this,
sir. Yes, sir.
100%. So again, we've had these conversations in the past about mid-gen refreshes. We've talked about our likes or dislikes with them. This generation has been wildly different from previous generations. It has not been predictable in any way, shape, or form due to a lot of outside factors that nobody knew was going to happen, right?
Yeah,
we've all said, I think, in unison on here, we think this, we've thought in the past that this generation would be one of the longest generations we have ever seen due to those factors. But we have seen in 2022, 2023 especially, some limitations seemingly popping up, even with the new engines like Unreal Engine 5. We are seeing developers come out and say, we just can't get these machines to do 60 frames, right? And all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And we all do know too, we're all so experienced gamers that, and Steel brings us up all the time, and I totally agree with him, and it's a great point. What we do this every generation, where the first games that come out in the beginning of the generation, we say, oh my God, how are they ever going to top this? Oh my God, look at these games. They're already getting the max out of these machines. And then by the end of the generation, we're seeing games that are like 3 to 5 times better.
You get Halo 4, you get the first.
Right, exactly. How did they do this? Like, what kind of magic are they working behind the scenes, right? So this happens like on a regular basis with generations. And so I have no doubt that the end of this generation, even with the current hardware, we're going to see things that we didn't think were possible from the examples we're getting. But for you, PTK, general thoughts on Sony doing this? Does this make sense for them? Does this give them the advantage for the rest of the generation? You know, that kind of area of thought. And then obviously Xbox side, if this is real and Sony pulls this out, is Xbox going to follow suit to keep the power narrative, or just to make sure that they don't fall behind more so in the generation? What do you think here, brother?
So I guess I'll go ahead and start with the Sony side of this first, because that's what I've been thinking about actually more so. It's crazy that we're seeing this. We're even having a conversation about this, right? That Sony's even in this position for this to even be a thing. Now, do they need to? Probably not, right? They're the market leaders. Their games are still going to sell extremely well. I have no doubt Spider-Man is going to blow the door off when it drops. It's going to sell probably 20 million, right? Like the last game did, right? So they're in a very good position, but there's a bit of discourse surrounding Sony. They don't necessarily do the things that they used to do. So I can't count on the old Sony behavior anymore, right? Jim Ryan is an X and O's guy. He's a numbers guy. And this might be something that's just different enough to differentiate them, because everything else that they're trying has not worked. They've tried the Game Pass like route. That seems to be very, very difficult for them. They're going to try this games as a service route. That's going to be very, very hard for them. Them doing the power thing is easy for Sony. They've done this before. You know, they've done the mid-gen refresh thing. They've had pro versions of this hardware. That's a quick way to get the base energized. Is a quick way to say, hey, we still understand like where we're at. We're still the market leader. You know, Sony likes to pull the whole, we like to assert dominance over the market thing, right? And it's a look for Sony. I think we can all understand that, right? I think we all agree that that's kind of Sony's look. We want to assert dominance. We kind of dictate where the market goes. And so dropping something like a Pro would at least portray that message that, hey, we're not worried about the ABK stuff, right? Like, I know you guys were trying to make it look like we were worried, but we're not worried. We got this PS5 Pro on the way. We got this slim version on the way. So for a marketing standpoint, I still don't think, and I'm with you guys on this one, I'm with Luke on this one in chat, I still don't think really either console really pushed, you know, like the console, like there's really any game to push the current consoles to where they could be as far as like where we're going to end up at. And I know you brought this point up just a minute ago, Fuzz, about like we're not there yet, and this always happens at the end of the generation. We always look back and see these games like, how the hell did this come out on this? Like, we look at the games that come at the beginning versus at the end, we're like, this is the same generation. How the hell did this happen? And I absolutely 100% agree. It's going to happen again. I kind of want to turn the question back on you guys real quick, and then I'll follow up with it. Do you guys feel like this was planned from Sony? I mean, because obviously this is something that you plan out 4 or 5 years in advance. These consoles don't. Do you feel like this was always something going into this generation that they had planned on doing? Because Phil said it a long time ago with this when they did the Xbox One X that they weren't losing this power narrative ever again. He said that, right? Like maybe he was just speaking about that generation, but he said that wasn't going to happen again. So do you guys think that once he put his foot in the ground, that was something Sony was already thinking about, or was this just kind of in lieu of the direction that things have been going?
I think Sony was thinking about it, even if he hadn't said that. I think they saw a nice bump in sales of consoles because they do focus still on console sales. That hardware is a revenue that they don't want to, let go. And they were pretty close or pretty profitable early with the PS5. I mean, yeah, they did some cost cutting or cost savings and stuff like that as far as some of the revisions that they did. But I think even if Phil never made mention about the power narrative, they would still make this Pro model. Now, the previous Pro, I think, was geared more so for the PSVR. We got PSVR 2.
That's what I'm saying.
Doesn't look like it's hitting quite like they expected. But I think that they want to double down on, the best experience. Like I think they still think that they're the Apple of consoles kind of thing. And they're going to go ahead and try to push it where they want to try to make their games look like movie level or movie quality visuals, and I think they'll try to spin it where it's only possible with this new SSD that's even faster and more memory and ray tracing, and it'll be marketing and easy for them to get some of their current PS5 owner or customers to buy again, and they don't have to worry about the trade-ins. That's something that GameStop can worry about, and whatever other retailers or eBay and whatnot. And they'll just make more money off of at least their quote unquote hardcore, or probably probably like 10% of their fan base that's in a PS5 now or probably more than that, but at least 10% will probably do the upgrade, and that's probably profitable enough for them to go ahead and do this.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I just kind of want to, before we kind of wrap this up on the Xbox side of things, want to address that too. Now, it's Xbox is in an extremely different position. Now, do they need to do it? No, I don't think that they need to do it. I like the idea, and I'm glad you guys brought it up. Maybe just cut the disc off the Series X and drop the price on that, right? Like, I still think the hardware is extremely strong. I still don't think that they've pushed. And like you said, we're just now getting next gen only games. Like, how can we have this conversation when we're finally just tip of the iceberg? And I know we thought, because Logan, I'm guilty. I'm sure you are guilty too. We thought we'd see that jump a lot sooner in this generation. I don't know where you're at on that, Logan, but I think we all assumed we would see that jump, right? Like, I know when I was a kid growing up, I thought by 2000 we was gonna be in like flying cars, and it didn't work out. Like, for real, in my head, I'm like, 1983. Okay, 1993, like, yeah, about 2000 sounds about right. We should be in flying, but it obviously that doesn't work out that way in reality. But it's for Xbox, they're in a unique position because I think they don't necessarily need to, but it's going to give Sony the look that they want. That's really what the pressure on Xbox is. Can they hold out? Because it's going to look really good on Sony's part, and then we got to think about too the third party aspect, right? You took COD off the table, which is a huge deal before if they decided to do a Pro, right? Like, that's a huge deal because now you took that chess piece off the table, right? The biggest third-party game you could possibly get outside of like Fortnite, right? You took that off the table, so that's no longer a chess piece that PlayStation can use and say, hey, look, Activision, we got the biggest, most powerful hardware. Like, you definitely got to sign this 10-year, matter of fact, sign this 25-year contract for marketing and, stay over here with us. You've took that domino off the table, so they no longer have to worry about that. So I don't think some people I know are just going to feel like it's necessary because it's competition. You have to be calculated when you do things like this. And I feel like for this time, it's not necessary. And I know they've doubled down. I think they've even asked Phil. Hasn't even been asked about this straight up, and kind of said that's not where we're that's not the feedback we're getting.
He has said that there won't be a mid-gen. right?
Yeah, basically, that's not the feedback we're getting from our customers. That's not something that we need to focus on in a real PR way kind of thing, right? But that's kind of where I'm at on it. Paul.
Okay, I like it. And to answer your original question too that you threw back to us, yeah, I do think Sony was planning this. I think Sony for sure was planning it from the moment they got caught flat-footed, because we know they were thinking that
Scorpio kicked them in the ass.
Exactly, man. And with the PlayStation 5, when they had to go back to the drawing board because they found out what was underneath the Series X's hood, right? And they overclocked the GPUs and all that kind of stuff that they didn't had originally planned. I think that from that moment on forward, they planned this PS5 Pro. All right, let's wrap it up with my final thoughts here on this topic here. Does it make sense for Sony? Yes, it does, because they are still playing underneath the old system, and they're still playing by the old rules. And like Logan brought up, this is their MO, right? And ever since the PS4 generation, it worked out great for them. And I think that they had this plan from the beginning, and I think for sure that this lines up with what they're still pushing, which is their hardware. Their game sales of their first party titles are all important. And I think it is important from them from a marketing standpoint, because we know how good Sony is at marketing their advantages time and time again, that they haven't been able to use the power. Now, sure, a lot of games themselves from third-party developers haven't performed well on Xbox from a pure performance standpoint, and have performed better on PlayStation 5, which they definitely have pushed in those areas as well. Now there is back and forth, because obviously Xbox has gotten a lot of wins out of it as well. But I think that Sony wants that power narrative back again to market. And I think that that's a big thing that they haven't been able to do. So I think that they will go for this. So that's where I'm at with Sony in general. Xbox, will they follow suit? I had originally thought they would. We're in speculation town here, so I'm going to go out on a couple limbs here. I don't think that Xbox is going to. I think they're going to play this out. Their de-emphasis of the hardware. And again, when I say that, I don't mean that they're going away from the hardware. I 100% believe there will be another console next generation. And I actually honestly believe there'll probably be another generation, at least more of Xbox hardware. Technology's got a lot to catch up before they start going that route, all digital. So I definitely feel that at this point, if I was Phil, what I would do with this information is, if I was sitting there and I was like, well, we didn't plan on doing a mid-gen. Our hardware isn't being taken advantage of. Even our first party isn't taking advantage of all these tools and all these special things that we put in the box that we've talked about. So by the end of the generation, I still have confidence that the Series X is going to be able to keep up with whatever PS5 Pro goes out. I don't do it, but what I do, because I'm going to own ABK, and I'm going to have somewhere around 35 studios at least, right? They're not done, but I'm just going to say I'm going to own ABK. I'm going to own one of the biggest franchises in the world in Call of Duty. I've got 35 studios. What I am going to do is, wherever our hard team is engineering-wise for next gen, I'm starting next gen early. I'm gaining the advantage. I'm coming out a year. We heard in court documents, everybody's assuming 2028 is the year for both PlayStation, PlayStation and Xbox. I bump that back and go 2027. And I come out early, and I come out swinging with titles that PlayStation can't match with that next gen. I work my relationship with AMD. They've got a fantastic relationship. I pay AMD the extra money. I get priority, and I get my next generation console out, and I launch that with a brand new version of Call of Duty, taking full advantage as a first party studio of all the bells and whistles. PlayStation can't scream parity because they will still get their PS5 Pro version, but we get the next gen version. And I push that narrative. And if there's any way, if Todd and his team have been working on Elder Scrolls 6, that I can get Elder Scrolls 6 out for that launch of that next gen, you got two of the biggest titles day one launch. Even if you can't do that, you say in the next year, I've got this many titles, 15 titles coming out for my next gen console within the first year of launch. You will have one of the biggest launches, because we do know one thing about the gamers and the gaming community. Most of us are tech heads in some way, shape, or form, and we want the latest and greatest. You come out a year early, you push your advantage hard, and you use the power of those 35 studios plus whatever else they acquire. you could put the full court pressure on PlayStation from the get-go next gen. And I think that that's the way I would go as a Phil. So that's just my idea. Speculation Town in full effect. That's where I'm at.
Awesome. And a great wrap up to another awesome topic. So I think we're going to actually go ahead and wrap up the show on that point, man. It's been an amazing show. Shout out to everybody in chat. You guys were fucking amazing. Every single week you guys show up and show out, bringing the energy, hitting the like button, dropping, chats and all that cool stuff. You guys are freaking amazing, man. So before we move on and wrap everything up for sure, let's go ahead and just go around and do some tidying up here. Before we're going to get into our guests and make sure we give them proper praise. And shout out to you, Logan, first for hanging out with us. First time on the Shop Podcast, man. I hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you loved the atmosphere in the chat and had a good time. And just let everybody know, where they can find you and what you got coming up.
Oh, PTK, thank you so much, man. I had a blast. This is so much fun. I had such a good time just chatting with y'all. So many thoughts and ideas, so many different conversations that I wish we had time to dive into, man.
Yeah, man. We can do this for hours.
Absolutely.
As soon as you guys started talking about something, I was like, oh, God, I really want to dive into that. Oh, it'd be such a good conversation. We haven't had that conversation yet.
Oh, you'll be back. We're going to get a chance, man.
Yeah, I would love to. It'd be great. So, if you guys, if you guys want to get a hold of me, links are in the chat right now. Thanks to Shanzu for that. And if you guys want to hear what I've been doing, head over to XEP, Xbox Expansion Pass with Luke Lore, the Insipid Ghost. That's where I do most of my conversations about the game industry in general from an Xbox perspective. But if you guys want to go even deeper than that, if you want to get into the games that are on Xbox, then I do a Keelhauled, which is a Sea of Thieves podcast that I've been doing since 2018. I think this upcoming episode is going to be 285 for me.
Congrats, man. That is fucking awesome, dude.
Getting close to that 300, man. Not quite where you guys are at, but definitely getting close. So, but thank you so much for letting me come on. It was great to have you on XEP, and I'm looking forward to getting to have more conversations with you guys. It's been fantastic.
Absolutely, man. Shout out to you, Logan, and you chat. You guys know what we do. We give the guests the A+ AAA red carpet treatment around here, Logan. So hopefully you get a bunch of subs and people come up, and show and look at your content. But you're amazing, bro. Shout out to you. Shout out to Luke as well, too. The other half of XEP. I know he was in chat earlier. Appreciate you too, bro. And I'm definitely gonna go back and watch XEP today. I do every single week. Logan, you and Luke do such a phenomenal job. I make sure that's one of the shows I watch every week, no matter what. So I appreciate it. Yeah, not a problem at all, bro. We'll definitely have you back on sooner than later for sure, chat. So you guys go do that. Go follow that, man. Go support everything they got going on over there. But appreciate you, bro. And hopefully we'll see you back here soon. So next to my two right-hand men here, my brothers in arms here at the Shop Podcast, the two men that make this show possible, make me look good every week. Start with you, Pong Harvey, man. Another great show on the books. Had an awesome guest, man. I don't know how we're doing it every week, man, but we're chugging along, bro.
Oh, we are, man. We are, man. We come here, we show up, and we put on a great show because this is my favorite place to be. This is your all favorite place to be every Saturday night. So this is what we do. And obviously we have amazing guests like Captain Logan come on, and they carry us a lot of weeks, right? They carry us through this. They add the spice. They add different conversations. Like you said, Logan, it was a pleasure to meet you, sir. Again, thank you for giving us your time. It was awesome to have you here. Love your thoughts, and I love when people bring, like you were talking about, different perspectives to this podcast, and we could talk. And if you can't tell, I love to talk. That's why Steele and I had almost 5-hour conversation this morning on these topics, because we break into those conversations you were talking about, Logan. I'd love for the show to be that length as well, because I would love to sit here and digest some and dissect some of the stuff that we were bringing up here, because there are some things you brought up that I certainly would love to dive into deeper. So thank you for being here. It was amazing. PTK and Fuzzy, again, as you said, PTK, just another classic show right here on the Shop Podcast to end the Saturday night. This is just fantastic. I love you, brothers. And chat, you guys were absolutely incredible. Really good thoughts in the chat as always. Really good discussion. That's what I love about this community. That's what I love about all the shows I'm on, is the chats are all. We've cultivated such a great community around these shows that they come in and have intelligent conversations, really fun conversations in there while we're talking, which adds to the show too. So thank you all for being here. Nothing but love and respect to each and every single one of you for supporting all of us in our efforts here. You guys know the drill. Pong Soul on Xbox, Pong Soul on Twitter. Listen, next week it starts all over again. I'm not on panel anymore, but I will always shout out Double Barrel Gaming, Mr. Boomstick, Mr.
Boom.
13K subs now.
Shout out
Listen,
to
the
Boom,
man does
man.
it 5 days a week. He is an absolute Terminator when it comes to this stuff. But his Tuesday show, Xbox Factor, always has a special place in my heart. So I always shout it out. 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 o'clock Central Time, every Tuesday. Always has a fantastic panel with great topics. So join that group over there on Tuesdays. Thursday night, it's PM in the PM, Pong and Mav in the PM. Over on Fun Speculations channel, 2-man show. Sometimes we do have guests from time to time, but most of the time it's me and Mav catching up on the week, talking to the chat, getting open conversations going. 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 o'clock Central Time. Check us out there. Friday nights back on Fun Speculations channel for Xbox Ultimate, where we have a bigger panel. The family gets together. We have a ton of laughs. We go sideways. We go every which way. We do get some gaming talk in there, but you just never know what the conversation is going to turn into. It's unbelievable on Friday night. So join us there, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 o'clock Central Time. And then, of course, Saturday mornings, it's Living Split Screen, all one word. Myself, my brother from another Steel Rain. Again, extra special shout out. Thank you to this entire community who supported me and Steel. We did episode 112. We are now partnered with YouTube, which is fantastic. We're still on our mission of 1K. And then just beyond that, the mission continues. But thank you all for what you've done to grow our show, because we only do it one time a week. We don't have a lot of extra content on our channel. It's really an organic way to do things. It's a really hard way to do things on YouTube, but we did it. So thank you all for that. But every Saturday morning, Living Split Screen, 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 o'clock Central Time. As my brother says, live, raw, and uncut. We bring the energy you need to get your weekend started. So be there for that. And then, of course, right back here, God willing, for the Shop Podcast next Saturday night. Listen, y'all, it's a golden age of gaming. I've been telling you this since I started podcasting. It truly is the best time ever to be a gamer. No matter where you game, no matter what you play on, it does not matter. There's something to enjoy. So get out there, play what you love what you play, and I'll talk to you all real soon. Thanks, Pete.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Appreciate you, Pong, man. The easiest way to keep up with Pong is going to be just follow him on Twitter. It's the easiest way to keep up with everything he has going on every single week. So I appreciate you so much, brother. The battery of the Shop Podcast, Mr. Pong. So, man, and last but not least, Fuzzy, man. Another great show, another awesome guest, brother. Every single week, man, we're bringing it.
Oh, yeah. It was definitely an awesome time tonight. Greatly appreciate Captain Logan coming on here, and love your views and thoughts on things. Man, it's always great to have like a different perspective, or we don't always agree, but we can always look at gaming as this go-to as far as our hobby. And it's always great having another gamer on here that we can chit chat with and hear your thoughts on things. It was awesome having you on. And as always love doing this with you, PTK and Pong. This is pretty much my wind down for Saturday night, and just love chilling and just chatting games with you guys. And thanks to everybody in the chat for checking us out. Greatly appreciate you guys taking the time, listening to us, retweeting and sharing and liking the video. Greatly appreciate it. Definitely appreciate it. But for those that want to hear my rambles and rants on anything gaming related, just follow me on Twitter or pretty much all social media as Fuzzy_Belvedere, or just Fuzzy Belvedere, all one word. You can also find me on Xbox Lunch Break Special on Double Barrel Gaming at 12 noon on Mondays. And then later that evening, FSP on Fun Speculations channel at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then look forward to seeing you guys right back here on Saturday for the next Shop Podcast. Look forward to seeing you there.
Awesome, man. Thank you, Fuzz. Every single week, man, bringing the energy, man. You guys go follow Fuzz as well, too, man. So I appreciate you. And last but not least, the host here, PTK Blam across the board. Come hang out with me. Follow me everywhere on Twitter, mainly. It's going to be a PTK Blam, Xbox Live, PTK Blam as well, too. Follow me there. I greatly appreciate you guys in chat. You guys are amazing, showing up every single week, giving us energy, man. So catch us same time, same place next week, man. We're going to have another great guest, another great time. We'll talk to you guys next week, man. Have a great weekend. Peace out, everybody.
Later.